Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 160. Happy St. Patrick's Day, St. Paddy's Day, all that fun stuff. How's everyone doing out there? I'm Steve Crane. I got Nate Hale at the table with me tonight. We don't have a guest. You guys are the guests tonight, and I have a feeling if anyone's out there celebrating St. Patrick's Day, we're going to have maybe a few less live listeners. Or maybe it'll be more entertaining and there'll be some drunk live listeners. That's what I'm kind of hoping for. So before we get started real quick, I want to thank our sponsors, Tinder Box at Easton. We have the CAO Brazilia. We got a little bit of green in that for St. Patrick's Day in the band, and then the on the box there for the CAO Brazilia. No Irish tobacco, but it's the closest we got this time. So we also have, just to go over that while we have it, we have the Quiet Man 8-year single malt Irish whiskey in the spirit of St. Patrick's Day. So, but thank you, Tinderbox at Easton, for providing the CAO Brazilia. We're going to have that cigar 15% off between now and next week's podcast. So check that out. Tinderbox at Easton, Columbus, Ohio, 15% off on the CAO Brazilia between now and next Wednesday. And also thank you to Altadis USA for providing. We've got the Romeo y Julieta 1875 Connecticut, Nicaragua, which we've reviewed on the podcast before. And it's one of our favorites, quite a bit milder than our featured cigar. So that might be an interesting switch in part two. Also, BS Cigar Company, thank you guys very much for the gold and silver. We love those cigars. And they are quickly gaining popularity. So if you haven't checked them out already, check it out through the podcast, through the Bourbon and BS community page, or you can check it out through the social media of BS Cigar Company. And then last but certainly not least, every week, guys, you guys are amazing. The patreon.com/bourbon and BS podcast. If you are enjoying the show and you want to share it, like it, review it, all that good stuff. But if you actually want to throw just a few bucks towards us to help us keep doing this, we really appreciate it. It helps us get bottles, get things like the technology to get it out there to you guys. And obviously any maintenance for any of our equipment, it helps us out because this is a bit of a hobby, but it's turned into a bit of a passion. And for us and also a lot of our listeners. So Bourbon and BS podcast. So patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. Guys, check that out. There's 3 different ways you can do it. $5, $10, or $25. We appreciate all the support. You can even put in $1 if you want to. So thank you guys very much. And let's get down to it. Part 2, guys, just so you know, if you stay tuned, first time listening, first part is going to be the cigar and whiskey review. And then part 2 is a life topic. And tonight's life topic for part 2 is you don't fuck with tradition, which I thought was appropriate because I started my day after a walk with some Guinness and eggs.
So I take it that's a tradition that you have.
You goddamn right it is. Goddamn right it is. And after that, I actually had a bunch of Facebook memories, some of them, but I mean, yeah. So yeah, we'll get to that. Let's not jump ahead. So what are we drinking? So let's start with that. You brought the Quiet Man 8-year.
Yes, Quiet Man 8-year single malt Irish whiskey. It is finished in oak casks that were once filled bourbon casks.
Okay.
So first fill. So basically the product is the first Irish whiskey that went into that used bourbon barrel. It wasn't a third or fourth use.
Gotcha.
Quiet Man hasn't been around all that long. It's actually a partnership between a distillery in Derry, Northern Ireland, and Luxco. Here in St. Louis.
Okay.
So that's actually a collaboration between those two, how they got started. The regular product, I think, is a 4-year, and then this one's the 8-year.
Are there any others? Did you look that up? Because I could have sworn I had one that came in a tube.
In a tube?
I'm pretty sure it did.
I've only had the other one, the 4-year, and this one tonight.
All right, I'm going to look that up while you're talking about something here in a little bit. It's hard to do this now that we only have the 2 of us here tonight because normally a guest we can actually do some small talk. Now I'm sharing it, doing what I'd like for everyone else to do, hopefully, and I'm sharing it to a bunch of different groups and everything like that. So
mine looks weird when I try to share it. So
it looks weird.
Like it doesn't even can't even share it to groups. Anyway.
Okay.
Maybe I'm not on your right feed. But yeah, so the gentleman that came up with this named it after, I shouldn't say named it after, but he was inspired by his father.
It's light.
It is an Irish whiskey. Those do tend to be a little bit lighter.
I know.
But his father was a bartender in an Irish pub for 50 years.
Really?
And there was kind of a code among bartenders, not telling what you saw or what you heard in the bar, like keeping that to yourself. And so he says, his dad never told him any of the stories from working in the bar.
Okay.
So that's why he called it the Quiet Man, because he held on to that value of, you don't talk about what you saw in the bar.
Okay.
So that's why it's called the Quiet Man.
So the bartender's the quiet man.
Yes.
Yeah. You don't want them airing out your secrets.
No. So, just like your barber, right?
Too.
Where's Shannon?
Yeah.
And then right above it actually has the Gaelic phrase for Quiet Man, on fair Coon.
Okay.
Don't ask me to pronounce that again.
I didn't ask you the first time.
Oh, okay. All right. I was going to just have Steve read the back of the bottle.
I can. I'm trying to share this. It's you're right. It's a little more difficult. They keep changing these things on the social media.
I know those
social medias.
Those bastards.
I'll get into this. I apologize, anyone listening that
Says, luckily for me, my father would sometimes bring me along to the bar he tended, and I grew up loving the laughter, the crike. I remember Martin. Crack, that's right.
Yeah.
Martin's gonna kill me from
probably
and
listening.
The wonderful smell of Irish whiskey. Yeah, whenever he makes it back to the States. So when I started bottling my own whiskey, I named it after my father. What you're holding is a rare single malt Irish whiskey, pot still distilled, aged in oak for 8 glorious years, and finished in first fill bourbon barrels for an unmistakable Irish flavor, sure to make my father proud. Over 50 years behind the bar, he saw and heard it all, but like all good bartenders, John Mulgrew, that's his dad's name, was true to the code and told no tales. He was the quiet man.
I like it. I like that story.
Yeah.
I wish more people, I think bartenders are. I know a lot of people in the restaurant industry, and they're not quiet. Well, there's a lot of rumors and a lot of information floating around out there in that, but I know what we're talking about here.
Yeah. I mean, bartenders here in the States, definitely different stigma
breed.
About them.
Different breed.
Yes.
They're good people. Don't get me wrong.
Yes,
I know a lot. They might be listening. I mean, I know a lot. A lot of my closest friends actually are in the serving industry.
Yeah. Here in the States, we think of a bartender as, that person that is going to talk to us and we have a conversation with and back and forth banter and stuff like that.
Yeah.
A little bit different, but.
All right. I think I'm done sharing at this point. Ryan Davis, happy St. Paddy's Day, fellas. Happy St. Paddy's Day. Seth, what's up, fellas? We got Freddie Burt out there drinking some Blantons and smoking a Davidoff late hour.
That's an expensive night.
Fancy. Jason Lois, who's going to be on the podcast towards the end of this month. He says, yo. So this is the 8-year, right? You said?
Yes, this is the 8-year.
Got some sweetness to it. It's very, I mean, when I say light, it's different. So I know a lot of you out there, bourbon drinkers. So we are the Bourbon and BS podcast. We're doing episode 160 tonight. So I feel as though sometimes it's okay. We've been doing it more. We're going to get back on the bourbon trail. That's bad. I don't like
we had bourbon last week.
I know. But we did the rum one. We did the Cachaça. And we've done another rum one recently. So this is all right. This is a little bit different, but
it's St. Patrick's Day.
It's holiday. Green. Bush Black. It's what's for supper.
There you go.
I like that, Ian, out there.
Yeah, I saw a couple bottles of Bushmills at the store underneath this one, and
yeah,
there was the 16-year Bushmills. It's $130.
What was it?
Bushmills 16 years, $130.
Wow.
The 10-year was $49, I think.
Okay. I think I loved it when we had Barry Chandler from Stories and Sips on, because he kind of made a comment that a lot of the Irish whiskeys, like even Jameson, you don't shoot it overseas. I mean, that's something that we do in America mainly, is that we shoot Irish whiskeys like Jameson.
We shoot a lot of stuff.
But I mean, Jameson is not something that, I like to even sip. I drink Jameson neat.
Yeah.
this is something that's very again, I keep going back to the light aspect of it, but it's easy drinking.
Mm-hmm.
There's no burn, there's no heat from this, which, so if you like that, a little bit of vanilla, I think caramel. I get a little bit of that, maybe butterscotch.
I get more of a honey,
honey,
like
okay.
honey and apricot.
Okay.
But yeah, it's got a thick texture to it, I think, in the mouthfeel. I know how much you like that term. But no, it does have it does have a thick texture up front.
Yeah, that's where I think you maybe get that sensation of honey too.
Yeah. And it's only 80 proof, which if you remember when we had just over a year ago when we had Martin and Pat Byrne, the guys behind Bua.
Yeah.
Like that's I mean, that's pretty typical with Irish whiskeys being, in that 80 proof. You don't see a whole lot of them going up higher than that.
No, they don't do a whole lot of like cask strength stuff that you see.
No,
barrel strength.
Although I'm sure you would love to find a bottle of Jameson like barrel proof.
I would. I don't know. I mean, I've had a lot of different Jamesons, not to get off the quiet man a whole lot, but I mean, they've got so many different offerings, and I've had a lot. More recently, I've had the opportunity to try different Redbreast, like the Redbreast 27. I tried a little bit of that. That was really good. And then Scott over at Fido, who, if you guys are in the Columbus area, you're looking for something to do tonight, I do want to give them a plug. They're going to be going for another, I think, 4 hours. So last call is in about 4 hours. Over at Easton, if you're on the west side, Fido. Dublin is another great spot, but I was up there at 8:30 this morning having my 2 Guinness before work. Luckily, I work in the cigar industry. So I was able to do that. 2 Guinness and 4 scrambled eggs and a cigar.
I actually
before work. It's America.
I actually opened a bottle of Guinness after I finished my coffee this morning. I was working from home, so who cares?
Well, I mean, your boss, maybe.
No, he was out sick today.
Oh, of course he was. Sick.
I know no one gets sick on St. Patrick's Day.
It's the day after.
It was yesterday. Yesterday he was sick, so maybe today. I don't know. I never heard from him all day.
Some people have to celebrate holidays. It's you don't fuck with tradition. Remember?
That's right.
What do you think of this whiskey before we move on here? This is going to be more of a rambling one. We're not going to do a full Sunday BS session here, but I think we've got a little bit more purpose. But with Nate being on and just me, we got Sean in the audience. It's a little light crowd, kind of like the whiskey, but it's
because everyone's out at the bar. Probably
it's a holiday.
Yeah, we always run into that whether it be around Thanksgiving or Independence Day or whatever. We always run into that issue.
Greg Hampton, who I believe you still work with, right?
I still do work with him.
He says, "Shut up, Nate. Stop. Yeah, you don't want to air that out." Talking about your boss and also drinking this morning before work.
I didn't drink before work.
You're making it worse. Was it at work while you were working? Yeah, much better.
It's a Guinness.
Oh man.
No, I do like.
I saw my boss and said, "Hey, I'm gonna pop over for a couple beers before I we open." He's like, "All right, we'll see you in a bit." Again, different industries. Yeah.
If I was working in the office, I would not have done that. But since I'm working from home, no one gives a shit.
Silence. Crickets.
No,
Greg's just like, "Don't shoot your hand, or don't show your hand," and he says, "LOL."
I do like this.
Of the whiskey.
Oh, is that what we were talking about?
That's what I was talking about. You were talking about work.
You brought up drinking Guinness before work. I do like this. It is definitely light. The 4-year is even lighter than this one is.
Yeah.
That one, it's actually been over a year since I've had that one. But I do think this one has a little bit more depth of flavor to it than what that 4-year did. But I do like it. It is enjoyable. It's very smooth. It's got a little sweetness to it.
What's the sticker on this?
$30.
Ohio.
$30.
$30.
I mean, it's more than Jameson.
Yeah.
But less than Bua.
Man.
Would you have rather?
No. I mean, I've had so he has a bottle of Sexton single malt as well. The thing I hate about that bottle is the actual bottle. It looks really cool.
It's horrible
you can't
to pour out.
Yeah, you can't pour it. You can't pour it.
Oh,
yeah, every time you pour it spills. Yeah, because it's like that just flat top, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Which, speaking of which, this one has it's a nice bottle. The presentation's good. We haven't really talked about that. If you guys aren't watching the video of it and you're just listening to us on audio, kind of a traditional stout, like shorter bottle,
like a Russell's,
kind of like a Russell's, and it's got just a really, really nice kind of a bronzy text to it with a dark background. It's classy. It's very classy. It's got the whatever, not embossed, but on the glass itself, it's going to have the Quiet Man craft distillery is going to be into the bottle there. So it's pretty cool. It's good look, good marketing. But again, this one it's good. It's just so easy drinking that I just don't know, man. I don't know what I'm looking for, I guess. It's pleasant.
Like, should I have brought a bottle of Bua to compare it to, or
no? I mean, I want to be objective and everything like that. I think this is it's a good. It's easy. You could drink it right now. It's 61 degrees right now in Columbus, Ohio. In the evening, we have daylight savings time, so I mean, it's still just dusk right now. But it's a nice drink. This would be nice on, I guess, like a spring or summer day, even fall. Put an ice cube or a little bit of water. You're going to lose a lot, I think. But
yeah, I would not put ice on this whatsoever, because with it being so light, the flavor is very delicate, so that the ice is just going to completely water out the flavor. But because it is light, yeah, you could drink this during the summer, sitting on your back patio.
Yeah. So if you're looking for a lighter, you said honey. That's kind of sticking with me. I'm thinking more of that butterscotch kind of in there too. It's kind of like it might be with a mouthfeel in there as well. But I mean, did you try any of this, Sean? Do you have a glass? Yeah. You got some? Yeah. All right. Just curious what you think here in a little bit as well. So as you get into it, yeah. So let's go over to the cigar though. While we're talking about the whiskey, let's shoot over to the cigar. CAO Brazilia. This used to be my go-to by far. Go ahead and talk here so I get the mouse back. All sorts of technical shit tonight. So
yeah,
I haven't even been drinking since this morning.
Oh, okay. Me neither. No, I'm with you there. When I first started smoking cigars, CAO was actually one of the first brands that someone had told me to try. The first cigar event I ever went to was a CAO event. Miguel was there. He was
Miguel Shodell, who's been on the show before. He's with Crowned Heads now.
Yep, he was the regional rep at the time, and then so was Eileen Osgener. She's the daughter of the founder, and CAO is actually his initials. So get a lot of people that come into the store. Yeah, you guys have any of those chows? It's like I know exactly what you're talking about. It's CAO, and it stands for Jono A. Osgener. And so I think their family was originally from Turkey, and he started out as a pipe guy and was making pipes, and then got into cigars in the 90s.
He was engineering a lot of the Meerschaum pipes, if I'm not mistaken.
Got into cigars in the 90s, and by the time I started smoking cigars in college, just about every single CAO cigar at that point had been rated a 90 or higher.
They got a lot of attention.
They did.
Ratings can be bullshit. I will say that. So, but they got attention a good way.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
It was a small operation, family owned. Wasn't one of the big boys. And then I want to say it was about 2007 is when they got acquired by General.
Yeah. So Tim had taken over at that point, to my knowledge. And so, General took him over or acquired him. And I think it was after that. It was later than that. It was like 2008, 2009, because I really got into smoking them, I think, in 2007, 2008. And they were not General cigars at that point. This is something I'll say about this, and I don't want to sound negative, and I'm not trying to. This is something that I used to love this cigar. I still like this cigar, but I used to love this cigar. And I was getting into it. I went from like a Padron Maduro, and then I found this one. And it just had this spice, and just, the construction was impeccable. It had that boutique feel like that you had, especially as you're getting into cigars. And then when General took it over, I'm not one to say that when a big boy takes over something that, it's like a sellout thing, or, something's going to change. This is a blend, and I don't know why, because the other CAOs I smoke, I don't think that much. This is the CAO Gold, GOL. That's the size. It's like a fat Robusto.
5x56.
Yeah. So this one, and especially the 6x60, the Amazon, there was something that changed in the construction, in my opinion. This is something that like mine right now. If you look at how packed this cigar is, I'm not getting a great draw.
Yep.
When I have, that's once, and we'll get into the rating towards the end here, but the construction, it's not an insult necessarily. I'm not, and if Ricky was here, I'd tell him, because he's the face of CAO. He's been on the show before. It's just, it's not hit or miss, but there is a potential that you cut into one, you look at, you're like, this isn't going to draw. And I get that on this size. I get it on the Amazon, and not so much the other sizes. I don't know if it's the fatter ring gauge or what, but when they took over this operation, there was a lot of complaining about the construction and the craftsmanship of the cigar.
I had to recut mine.
I did too.
Further down, and it's still, like, I'm still above that last cap line, but yeah, I'm still having that same issue.
And that's a shame, because when you get it drawing really well, you get so much more spice and flavor, and I'm not getting it tonight. So I apologize. We're being as honest as we can be on this, because normally I really love this blend. This used to be my cigar that when I came into the shop back in the day before I was in the industry, I was that type of customer that they would just be like, how many you need today? And I'm like, I'll take 3.
We still have those.
Yeah. So no one for this cigar, but this was my cigar, and I would just come in. So I took like a vacation, my first vacation down to Jamaica. I bought a box of these and took them down there with me. This was my daily kind of smoke.
So what was it about this cigar back then that made it your daily smoke?
Some of the things I've already alluded to. It's very full flavored. It's like medium to full bodied, and then also it's got that spice. Normally, it's different. It really just pops, and it was a consistent smoke for me. And I love the flavor. And drinking this tonight, and it being not the most, I can't get the best draw out of this. It's not. Yeah, this is not pairing. It's not pairing well because it's not going well. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the technology tonight so far. Got a couple little hits and bumps and stuff like that.
I got you. I think this cigar, while it is still a good cigar, even if it didn't have, that construction issue that you were alluding to, it's still a good cigar. But I think because this cigar has been around for so long, that this is one that people overlook because they've had it, they've smoked it a bunch of times. And like even within CAO, like people that love CAO, they're always looking for something new. And so anytime Ricky comes out with a new CAO, people are going to go to that.
This is still their number 1 SKU, though.
Is it really?
It's their best seller. Yeah, CAO Brazilia is still their best seller.
I'd have thought it was. I'd have thought it was the Flatheads.
No,
wow,
not to my knowledge. Last time I checked, and that's whenever it wasn't last year. This is definitely still the best. This has consistently been their best seller.
Okay, that actually does surprise me because, like I said, I think people have fallen in love with the Flatheads, the Amazon series that Ricky did.
Really getting frustrated with this.
Do we have a needle? Do we have a draw poker?
Yeah. You keep talking. I got to fix this. And this is something I'll show you guys. You know you can do. So this is a good learning lesson.
So, yeah. What I was saying, like, this cigar has been around. I would say this cigar has been around for 15 years or so, and so even in the shop, there's not a whole lot of people that do come in specifically requesting this cigar, because they're always looking for that next thing. You get a lot of people coming in and asking what's new, so that's why I think this one gets overlooked. I do like the banding and the marketing on this one. It's kind of similar to what we talked about a couple weeks ago when Josh was on, and we had the Trinidad Espiritu Series 2, which has
how soft it is.
Which has a Brazilian wrapper as well, and some Brazilian tobacco in the filler. So this one, like the band actually, looks like the Brazilian flag. So you got the blue circle, the yellow diamond, and then the green around it.
It's part of their World Series. I don't know if you said that already.
Yeah.
Look how soft this is. I mean, it's just like mashing together in there.
Oh gosh.
Look at it. No, yeah. Again, this is I do want to make a disclaimer. Great cigar. I've smoked it for years. Like I said, I have seen some construction issues. It is disappointing that it happened with this one. So I'm not bashing the cigar. I don't want you guys to say never buy a Brazilia or CAO product. This is just, where I'm at with this particular one. But I was using a small screwdriver to kind of draw it through or push it through the filler. And if you have something called a draw poker, that will go like all the way through it. And that sometimes can give you some channels for airflow, and therefore it'll start really igniting and getting that airflow through there.
What I was doing is, as I was smoking it, I was kind of rolling it in between my fingers.
Yeah, moving it around, moving the filler around
to try and soften that up a little bit, so that way I'd be able to get a little bit more air through it. But yeah, so the World Series, you got the Brazilia, the Colombia, the America, and then
Italia,
and then the Italia. That's right.
Yeah, Brazilian and Italia were like the big sellers for a long time, I thought. And then the Colombia came out along with America. The America was before the Colombia.
Yep.
They also have a Nicaragua that they added to it. Ricky added to it not too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, CAO is a great brand. I'm not. I feel terrible coming across like I'm bashing the cigar. This is just, and you're having it too. So we have two cigars out of the same box. That unfortunately now it looks like you're getting a little bit more smoke. It's smoking. It's just an effort. You're not getting a whole lot of smoke from it, I feel like, or I'm not.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I fell in love with this cigar when I first came onto this brand. It was one of those that you take a puff and you just got this huge plume of smoke coming out. But yeah, this one just having to pull too hard on.
So now it's heating up and all that stuff. Yeah, that's tough. But I've always liked it. It is a Brazilian Maduro, like a Maduro shade. It's very dark wrapper. It's over Nicaraguan binder and filler. It's kind of a classic, like I said, to their portfolio. A lot of other people are saying you got to try the box. Like Brian Fear is saying you got to try the box press.
That was a good one.
That's a great one. Ricky Rodriguez also tweaked it years ago and had the Carnival, which was a box press that he tweaked the blend just a little bit, which was a killer tweak. And that's the question that he always gets, at least when he comes through Columbus, Ohio, is like, when are you going to do the Carnival as a regular release? And we have not seen that yet. Well, Freddie Burt says the Sopranos CAO is to die for.
It's no longer called the Sopranos.
Yeah, so it's a consigliere now.
So that way they don't have to pay the royalties to HBO.
What were you going to say?
I forget what I was.
Okay.
I had some.
The Flathead's good as well. You go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Jesus Christ. We need like a.
I wasn't going to stop
here.
No, I wasn't going to stop you. No. You brought up Ricky getting asked if he's going to do the Carnival as a
I did.
So Ricky, when he was on the podcast the first time, he'd actually told us that if he can't produce a certain number of cigars, then he's not going to do it. Like, he's not going to make it a regular release if he can't produce a certain number each year.
True.
So that's why he does some limited editions like the Amazon series, but those aren't necessarily a regular production thing.
Over the years we've heard different things from Ricky, and I love the guy, and it's awesome. He said he was going to put it in like some 4-packs. That never happened. So it's I don't know. I just think he doesn't have the tobacco to make it that same way. But they put out some great projects since then. He's putting out another new one here that just started getting released that I hope to get hands on as well. I know Jonathan Herring, our old rep, is down in Texas, working for their now sister company, if you will, or in the same portfolio called Forged. That's General and Forged are separate but kind of together. They're focusing on different lines. CAO is going to stay with General Cigars, and so we here in Columbus have a different rep now. So hopefully we'll get Ricky back on the show and we can highlight his newest stuff. But like I said, I like this cigar. It's just we're having some poor luck with it, which I think I like about doing this live is that you can kind of have these trials and errors, and you may not like it if you guys are listening that it's not as polished, but this is smoking a cigar, true review. And Sean in the audience is also smoking one, and he says it's drawing just fine. So that's 2 out of 3 are struggling a little bit, and the one is doing well. And when I smoke it and it smokes well, I have more luck with this goal size versus the Amazon, which is 660, if you will, out of contrast. And this I have more luck with the construction on this than I do the others. So we shall see.
Is the reason that the Tinder Box only carries those 2 sizes because those are really the only 2 sizes people ask for, or those are the 2 best selling?
Oh no, every shop's different. they're the two hottest sellers.
Okay.
And I mean, we're not one of the shops that are going to do like the Tinder Box is not one of those shops that's going to just carry like 5 or 6 different lines or different sizes of a cigar if they're not needed. They do have other sizes, and I've smoked them. They're great, but yeah, these are the most asked for, sought after. Or if you're just coming in for a Brazilia, you have a small and a large. That's basically it.
They used to do them in those little 5-pack petite Coronas, but they don't do those anymore.
They were smaller than that, but yeah,
yeah,
the Caracaos or whatever.
Yeah, those were nice.
Yes, this is a good blend, and it is like I said. Normally, it's a solid cigar. I apologize. We might have to, circle back at this, or I might smoke another one on the community page and see what we think, or do it on one of our Sunday BS. Make sure I grab one of those for a Sunday session and see if we have better luck with that cigar. Well, like I said, without another person, let's just go right into the ratings.
Okay.
Yeah. And Sean, if you want to, you can throw out your ratings as well, but we'll get started here. Nate, what do you think?
So on the whiskey first, I'm going to give the whiskey an 8. I do enjoy it. I like the flavor.
8, like as in
8 out of 10.
8 year.
Not what I was thinking, but thank you. Where's the drums? No, it is very enjoyable. It doesn't necessarily, have the greatest complexity to it, but it's very easy to drink. $30 is not an expensive bottle. This kind of goes, when we had our last Sunday check-in, someone had asked like your favorite $30, under $30 bottles. Like this is $29.99. Like this is a good Irish whiskey for under $30. And it is a little bit more complex than the 4-year, and I think that's not just the extra aging, but also the bourbon barrel finish. So it's pleasant. It goes down smooth. I think it's a good bang for buck Irish whiskey, so I'm at 8 for that. On the cigar, on this one, I'm going to be at a 7. I like this cigar, kind of like what you said. I like it. I don't love it anymore.
Yeah.
I used to love this cigar when I
did?
Yeah, when I first got the first couple of years that I was into smoking cigars, like this was definitely one of my favorites. At that time, like I was trying to smoke as many different cigars as I could. CAO was actually one of the first 3 brands that I really started just smoking as many different blends from those brands as I could.
Gotcha.
So I've always had an affinity for CAOs. So, I just wish.
Would you rate it?
7.
7. How about the pairing?
Pairing. I think the pairing's more along the line of a 6 to 7 range. I think this cigar, even when it's smoking well for us, I think because that Brazilian tobacco and some of the other tobaccos they're using I think it overpowers this whiskey a little bit because this is a light, very delicate whiskey, and I kind of figured that might happen with it being an Irish whiskey. But yeah, this cigar kind of overpowers it just a little bit. Great on their own, not as good together.
Gotcha. Sean, Sean on.
He is now.
Yeah. So I was fortunate enough to get to draw one of the cigars that were not like drinking a McDonald's milkshake, where it's super hard to pull.
Sounds good right now, doesn't
it? Yeah, that shamrock shake.
Oh, shamrock shake. There you go, buddy.
But yeah, for the cigar, I'd give it an 8.5. I enjoyed it. I remember when I was first into the cigars, I had this, and I remember it just was so strong. It was hard for me to handle. But now over the years, since I've been smoking a lot more, it's I love it. It's like really good flavor. The retrohale, I love the flavor with the retrohale. I think that really makes it makes me want to come back for that again.
Yeah,
and hope that I get one that's not too tight. Yeah, as far as the whiskey too, yeah, it's like I don't know, man. It's like that's dangerous because usually I'm expecting some kind of a kick or some kind of a spice.
Like a heat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's just nothing. It's like you don't, God forbid you put an ice cube in that thing. All you taste is sugar. But I mean, it's okay. I mean, I think if people are more on the light side of drinking whiskeys and stuff, it's a good one for you. I don't mind it, but being with you guys, I'm used to some stronger stuff. But so I'll give that a 7.
This actually has won quite a few gold and silver medals in international competitions and even at San Francisco.
Well, I mean, the flavor's good. It is really good. I do like. There's a lot of flavor to it. It's just I'm just like I said, so used to, some more girth to it. So. But with the pairing, I'll probably give it a 7.5. And I agree with Nate. It's like the cigar's very full, or almost a full body medium, and it's a lot stronger than you usually with the heavier whiskey or bourbon. It really would complement that, but it being so light, I give the combination a 7. So, but it's still not bad. I mean, it'd be good for a hot summer day.
Yeah,
that was what I'd be drinking for sure.
Gotcha. So yeah, I kind of feel a little bit like the what we call Nate a lot of times, the Russian judge. I'm bummed. I'm bummed with this tonight just because the construction issues, and I feel like I can't give it a objective rating off of this one cigar. Like this is, I am 160 episodes in, and I don't recall an episode that I've had this frustration trying to smoke a cigar on the show.
No, not at all.
So, again, I don't want to deter anyone from trying a CAO Brazilia of any Vitola, but this, like, I even have a ring now going around the cigar, which shows that it's just the suction, like, it's like the saliva is not, I mean, it's not working. It's very frustrating.
I think what you should do is do like a buy 3, get a draw poker for free. That way you're
run that by Ricky. As I do that, I take almost like an effortless draw. So you have to get halfway through the cigar apparently to really get past. Although that's about as far as that little screwdriver I was using to use as a draw poker got to it. So maybe I'll open this back up here. So with the cigar, I'm going to give this one, I'm giving it a 7 just because I've smoked very good, well-constructed versions of this cigar. And I love the flavor. I mean, I feel like I've already talked about that. I love the flavor of the cigar. I also have, as I had already talked about, and Nate talked about after, is that, that I smoked, this was my go-to cigar. But if this was the first time I smoked it, I'll smoke it one more time. And if it
always
like
give
this,
a cigar a second chance.
If it smoked like this, I wouldn't go back to it. So take that for what it's worth. I mean, again, I'm not dogging CAO. I'm not dogging General. I'm not dogging Ricky. I just think that this is we had 2 cigars at the table, 1 in the audience, and 1 out of 3 smoked well. And that's a problem. So maybe they have to look at that. And I think this is something they've had a construction issue with this particular blend for whatever reason.
I can feel where it's tight on mine.
Yeah. So 7. Whiskey, 7. It's good. It's one note. I feel like, it's like that whatever that sweet, like you said, honey, I say vanilla, like caramel. Like, I mean, there's like, I know that sounds like more notes, but it's very one-dimensional whiskey. It's not going to be like what Sean was saying. It's not going to be, it's just this like smooth drinking liquor that it's non-offensive. It's tasty, but you're not getting a whole lot. That's kind of it,
It's like when Kenny G set the world record for the longest continuous note played. Like
no,
one note.
Those 40. Are his words. This is my review part. That's his words. I do not condone the Kenny G one note comparison to what I'm saying.
You said one note.
I did, and you took it to Kenny G long note. You could have said that.
It was one note.
Oh my God.
Play some Kenny G now.
We're not playing Kenny G. This is just 160 episodes in. The pairing. Geez, where'd I go from there? 7 and a 7. Yeah, 6.5. I do sound down on this one, Jesus, because the cigar is just not smoking well. This is a good whiskey, but it's not great. It's like a one note, and you're right. I mean, like it was a full-bodied cigar, typically with a lot of flavor.
Yeah.
And if it was smoking well, it actually might bring more out of it. But it's like, it's just this, everyone says like, oh, my favorite cigar. I got a Cuban when I was on vacation. I was on the beach, and this beautiful girl was next to me, in a bikini, and the sunset was just right, and I had a good buzz going, and that was like the best cigar I ever had. you're defining or basically looking at utopia. I wouldn't say this is the opposite. This is not like hell doing this. This is not like the worst case scenario, but like if this was your first time smoking a cigar and drinking whiskey, you'd be like, it's okay. I didn't really enjoy it because the cigar's not smoking well and the whiskey's is good but not great. Yeah. Wow, that's the roughest review I think I've given in all the time we've done this show.
I know.
This is what happens when you smoke a cigar. And so at the Tinder Box, for example, if you have one that's cracked or plugged, typically we're just going to replace it with another one of that because chances are it's just that cigar. It's handcrafted. It's not machine made. And every once in a while, between the storage of it, the humidification of it, the ups and downs of, traveling and everything else, shipping it, you might have some issues with a cigar. It is something that when you spend, and this one's going to be in that $8 range for this size, so you're not spending a ton of money, you're still spending $8. And if you're, this is what you sit down, this is the cigar of the night, like it is for this episode, and you're sitting there, you finally get the right music on, you finally sit down, you're relaxing, you maybe pour a drink, you light up the cigar, and then you spend the next half hour trying to suck through a garden hose. You're like, this is terrible. And you end up, I've done this, not even with a temper, you just get frustrated. You're like, you know what, forget it. You just throw it down. You're like, that's it. I'm just going to sit here and drink and hang or go back inside or whatever it is. I don't need to smoke tonight because it does. It kind of ruins your night.
I got you.
It's like you spill a drink.
Don't go there.
Right?
So am I on?
Yeah, you're still on.
All right, Steve.
You.
Yeah.
I think you need to right now read your shirt aloud.
Yeah, pour one more, light up another. You want to light up another?
And figure it out together.
Figure out together. I figured it out. I'm already there.
Okay, forget the last part. Pour one more and light up another.
Hang on.
Further away there, Sean.
I also don't like wasting this.
Yeah.
So like as long as it's not completely just like cracking, falling apart on me, I do suffer through it. I'm also a glutton for punishment at times, like a lot of us. So you do this, I'm gonna bitch and complain about it. I'm gonna smoke the rest of it. And
I've only seen you once in all the years that I've known you smoke a cigar and then after like 5-10 minutes go, nope, done.
I can think of two, and I know you're talking about the one more recently.
Yes. That one I smoked.
Don't throw it out there.
I continue to smoke that
one.
one.
Not dogging it.
Nope. I had it happen.
So frustrating.
I had it happen one time with a cigar many years ago. The cigar, it tasted like it hadn't rested, like the tobacco hadn't aged like it should.
Yeah.
Because I lit it up and there was just so much ammonia. It was like walking into a horse stable. Oh my gosh. Just nothing but ammonia. And I smoked maybe an eighth to a quarter inch of it and just put it down. And
yes,
ironically, I put that cigar down, and you know what cigar I lit up instead? CAO Brazilia.
Tried and true, right?
It was at that time, yeah.
All right. That's not all right. So again, I don't want anyone like Ricky or anyone else. We apologize. We're not trying to be cruel to this. This is an honest review. This is a bad one. Like I said, I'm going to make an effort to grab another one and maybe do it on one of the Sunday episodes. We're doing Sunday BS, and I'll be smoking that one intentionally so I can kind of circle back to this.
Okay.
Yeah. Just disappointed.
And
it's just
when I first lit up the cigar, I was really excited because when I first started puffing on it, I got this sweetness from it that I've never gotten from this cigar before.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, wow, that's different. Now, granted, my palate's come a long way in the time that I've been smoking, but and that was before I even had any of the whiskey.
Yeah.
I got the sweetness off this cigar. So I was really excited for that. And then, yeah.
All right, we're beating a dead horse here, Nate.
I don't know what the problem is. I don't really enjoy my cigar.
There's Sean over here. Mine's smoking great. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Matter of
Fuck
fact, I'm
off.
gonna give it a 9.
Yeah, all right. No one asked you. I'd ask you, but no one asked you. All right. Nate cut off his mic.
Well, no, because otherwise it's going to pick up every little thing he does back
No,
there.
I like it. No, that's a good move. Good power move. Good power move. Sean's like, fucking, I'm out of here. Except thanks for the cigar and the whiskey. Yeah, Ian says, moving on.
Well, and my wife texted me that because the banner We talked about the bottle, but she couldn't see the bottle. So there we go.
All right. I want to thank our sponsors for part one. This was an interesting part one on episode 160 here. We had the Quiet Man 8 year, and we are smoking the CAO Brazilia. Thank you, Tinder Box at Easton, for the CAO Brazilia. And, Ricky again and everyone at General Cigars. This definitely came across maybe as we're dogging the cigar. And I want to reiterate one more time because I feel very bad about it. Normally, we love this cigar.
Yes.
That's where we're coming back to it. So things happen. You got to give it another chance. Yeah. Altadis USA. I'm looking forward to smoking and hopefully having a good draw on the Romeo Julieta 1875 Connecticut, Nicaragua.
And you did say the Brazilia was 15%.
Yeah, we're going to do 15% off. Not because of what we talked about tonight.
We haven't done that in a while.
We haven't. That's why I want to do it tonight. So don't fuck with tradition, right?
There you go.
All right. Also, BS Cigar Company, Gold and Silver. I got a gold over here that I might smoke either tonight or tomorrow morning, maybe on my walk, or I might try that other Brazilia we have sitting over here as well on my walk tomorrow. But BS Cigar Company, Gold and Silver, all Nicaraguan products. Plasencia tobacco made in the Plasencia factory. Jesus, man, I'm frustrated with this cigar. I'm thrown off. That's
another F word.
Yeah. Factory. That's what I meant. And then the silver's made on the Zona, all Nicaraguan as well. Eric Espinosa on that one. We appreciate those guys' hard work on that, and you guys loving those cigars. And also patreon.com/bourbonbs podcast. Thank you guys for all the support. In the process of getting another printer. I know it sounds like we're delaying it. COVID messed up a lot of things as far as ordering them back during this last year when we had plans to really put out some swag. Luckily, I do have some great extra prizes that I'm going to be doing starting here. I'd say, I might be able to do it this March. Anyone that's a Patreon customer, I'm going to have some random raffle prizes. Whoever's an active Patreon member. We've got a couple of.
Is that going to be open to all tiers, or are there going to be different prizes per tiers? Or?
No, for now it's going to be everyone to get a kickstart. I want to apologize to everyone for not getting more swag out there for you guys. So this is something that we did work out with Altadis, one of our sponsors. We got some cutters, we got some lighters. I got a couple of, actually 3 sets of 2 whiskey glasses, the H. Upmann whiskey glasses that have the cigar rest on top of it. So some really cool ones. So we'll get that out there to the Patreon, and I'll throw it out there on the Bourbon and BS Facebook page before we do it, in case anyone wants to contribute to the Patreon page as well, just to help out the show and also get you guys some prizes. So we appreciate all that support. Ian says, forgot about the shirt. Yeah. Okay. No, unfortunately, like I said, COVID, it made our printer, who's a small guy in Johnstown, Ohio, he lost all the school stuff, all the other athletic stuff during this last year. And so he had to basically shut down his shop and go back to his old career. So those are the news stories you don't hear about on the small businesses that are self-employed. So it's a shame. And so now the cost for us is going to have to go up. And I want to make sure I'm comfortable with the printer and making sure they do some good stuff for us, because we've had a lot of good feedback on the shirts that we've made. And that was where I wanted to do these green ones. And then we ran out of time while he basically had a certain amount of time. And then he had to give up his workspace and sell his equipment. So on that light note, thank you very much. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. Stay tuned for part 2. Share it, like it, review it. A little rough on part 1. Hopefully part 2, don't fuck with tradition. We'll have a little bit of positive conversation there. And hope you guys are enjoying your St. Patrick's Day. Cheers.
Cheers. Do we want to close that garage door? We don't have a heater on.
Are you cold?
Yeah.
Can you crack that? Or take it down to the 1 notch, please? That's fine. I'm really frustrated with the cigar. This is the first time I think that, like I said on the show, I can remember that.
The only time I can think we had something even close to it was
Jesus.
We had a gentleman on. It's been, this is going back, I think 2019.
Yeah.
We had a gentleman on that actually brought some cigars that he had rolled and made.
Oh yeah.
And he was sitting over here on the end. I think we were doing 4 people and we still had the square table.
I remember. Yeah, it was with Leo.
Yeah, that's right. Leo was on. We were doing scotch, I believe. I think Leo brought a scotch for that one.
Might have. But the point is, he had his own rolled ones and they were not drawing well at all. Right.
Mine did. Yeah. But there were 4 of us at the table. I think half of us had cigars that drew well, half of us did not. Okay. So yeah.
Oh. So much better.
Sean or Ian, you do not want to see me in a bikini.
All right, let's get started here before we go down that rabbit hole. Yeah. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 160, part 2. You don't fuck with tradition. That's the title of this one. That's the topic. I want to thank our sponsors, Tinder Box at Easton, for providing the CAO Brazilia that we smoked in the first one. We had some construction issues. If you're just clicking on to part 2, go back and listen. We were very objective. I was maybe a little more objective. Shortest intermission ever. Yeah.
You didn't.
You're about to start talking about a bikini.
No.
You in a bikini.
No.
Well, you didn't start it. You were going to finish it.
I did finish it.
All right. Also want to thank Altadis USA for the Romeo Julieta, the 1875 Connecticut, Nicaragua. I already cut that one, took a dry draw through it, and I'm very pleased and being put at ease a little bit. And then also BS Cigar Company Gold and Silver are available as well. So definitely check that out. And also patreon.com/bourbonbs podcast, guys. Thank you very, very much. At the end of part 1, we were talking about that we have some raffle prizes for Patreon members, and we want to make up for a little bit of the delay and some of the swag because of the differences of how this last year affected our printer that we lined up with. He had to shut down, he opened back up, and now he's shut down permanently. So it's just what happens. I mean, that's what happened last year. So yeah, you don't fuck with tradition. So this morning, it's funny because Facebook after the fact, we knew about it, but the Facebook after the fact, and while we're sitting there, even before that, I went to Fido, which is right next to the Tinder Box at Easton, and they normally, it's been different obviously the last couple of years. We normally will have a tent, which we do the smoking tent event with, and so last year we had to cancel the tent event. They had to cancel the tent in general, and they were shut down on the 15th last year when we did our event, as all the restaurants in Ohio were shut down, and they were not able to do anything for actually St. Patrick's Day. Now this year, obviously things have changed a little bit, but it's today was St. Patrick's Day, obviously, and they opened up at 7 a.m. They were doing reservations on the inside with social distancing. And on the patio, it was kind of first come, first serve. And in the morning, they don't have a cover. Normally, they'd have it in a tent, and they call it kegs and eggs. So a buddy of mine, Larry Schumann, who does all the graphic design stuff for what Nate has on the Smoking Tent event, he helped me out with all this stuff. If you've seen that, when the world hands you some BS, light it up. He helped me out with that one.
The logo in the corner.
The logo in the corner. Oh, the Bourbon and BS logo. Yeah, all the logos that you see for Bourbon and BS podcasts, any of the tent stuff, any of the Tinder Box, any of the BS stuff, that's been all through Larry Schumann. Anyways, he and I have known each other for many years, probably since 2008. So we're going on, I think, 13 years or so. And it was funny. He and I were the only two that really showed up this morning, but we had talked about it. And so got there around 8:30. He got there a little bit before me. And we sat down, and I had a couple of Guinness and got some scrambled eggs, smoked a cigar, and we took a picture. And as we're doing that, I started scrolling through some of my iCloud photos, and I went back to all the way to like 2000, because we were like, what was that one? We were sitting out back in this area, that like outside the tent, and I was like, I think I have a picture of that. I scrolled back. It was 10 years ago, 2011.
Jeez.
It's 2011. And I had other pictures from before that, and I know he was around there, but I didn't have any on my phone of just the two of us like that. And then after the fact, later this afternoon, Facebook memories, I look at that, and there were, I think, 5 others that we were like, it was 2 years ago. I found out I also sometimes wear the same sweater over the years as well. But it was like, it was him and then William the Red, who's been on the podcast before. He was with us 2 years ago, and then it was like 3 years ago or something like 4 years ago. Like it was like we've been doing this tradition, and it's something silly that even in my last career, I would try to take off St. Patrick's Day and the day after and just go all day. Before I worked at the Tinder Box, I am not proud of it. I'm not really ashamed of it. Maybe I fell asleep in a chair at the Tinder Box at one point. Almost fell asleep at PF Chang's, which is another neighbor. We went hard. When you start, you can't drink all day unless you start first thing in the morning. And we did that. And this morning, so I had a couple. So that was one of the things that since I've started at, working in at the Tinder Box, doing the Smoking Tent event, it's just not the same. I can't really take off the whole day and, go do this. So this was kind of the new things. We didn't want to lose out on this. And normally if we didn't have the podcast tonight, I would be at Fido right now, probably, drinking and smoking and having a good time with friends and family over there, because that's kind of how it is. Right. So that's where this whole, you don't fuck with tradition type stuff comes from. Today specifically is it's fun to see the enjoyment that it sounds trivial, but the dedication that you can put into making sure that you keep up with your friends and some like family traditions. And sometimes it seems silly or it seems overdone or why are we doing this? But when it's stuff like this, it's fun. Like, getting together on St. Patrick's Day, people that are still around that can make it, they always have a good time. And Larry and I'm glad we did it. We kept another year going with, obviously last year we weren't able to get together because of the shutdowns due to COVID and everything else. But we still did it. Like even with the Tinder Box, Sunday, the 14th, it wasn't a smoking 10 event, but we still did something.
Mm-hmm.
We got together. We had some reps there. We got some people out there. We had some cigar deals. We had some drink deals and stuff like that. It wasn't the same thing, but there was almost like a placeholder. Like we're not going to lose this tradition altogether.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think that there's something there just as a kind of a jumping off point. There's obviously some other family traditions I have. There's some other silly traditions that I've started over the last several years. And I don't want to really have to really beat it down a whole lot, but it's hard not to talk about last year of how it drove people nuts. And maybe they are just now realizing it, but it seems like this just happened yesterday when we shut all this stuff down. But think about all the things you couldn't do this year that were traditions in your family, with your friends, going to sports games,
Mm-hmm.
just going over to people's places for certain things. Like you just couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we really strive to keep the podcast going during this time. We tried to keep the business, as far as Tinder Box at Easton, try to keep the business going the whole time, because we didn't want to shut down completely if we didn't absolutely have to. Because as soon as you do that, it really, really affects your day-to-day, your well-being, your mental status. And just, I think I saw that with a lot of people.
Had you been thinking about talking about tradition before I texted you this morning?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I'd actually texted Steve this morning, because I had the same kind of thought, talking about tradition, because I saw, I knew Steve was going to be a Fido. I actually was watching the news this morning because Steve actually posted on his Facebook page about one of the local news agencies was going to be there. So I actually watched the morning news for the first time in a long time.
It's not as bad.
Just
not as bad as the nightly news.
Yeah, a little more uplifting. But yeah, just to see what was going on and see how things were doing, and that's what made me think of the topic of talking about tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sent Steve, just a 1 or 2 sentence text, and immediately Steve comes back with "Don't fuck with tradition." I'm like, there we go.
The "You don't fuck with tradition" actually, that came from a show called Letterkenny, which I think is hilarious.
Yes.
And that was one of the things they talked about. And it was something silly. It was about one of the guys' birthday.
Yep. Super soft birthday party.
Yeah. So that's one of those things that, 2 years ago, that was one of my Facebook memories, was I wrote that exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You don't fuck with tradition. And that was 2019, which would have been the last 10 event that they did, for both Tinder Box. But that was something. Did you see that one?
Yeah, I saw the picture from 2 years ago
with Larry and William and I. And I, underneath caption, it was like, "You don't fuck with tradition." It was like, I think I just really put a lot of value in something as trivial as getting together for St. Patrick's Day, because we've had so many good memories. And that's what Larry and I were talking about. Another fun, silly one that I started years ago was Southie Movie Marathon.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't do that this last year either, because we didn't want to like encourage everyone coming over to the house and, with COVID going on. And it was frustrating. These are those things that, like I said, it's hard for me not to talk about, because last year how it all went down, but all the things that we were normally doing that were like your outlets or things that you could like look forward to, even taking an annual vacation for some people, you couldn't do it.
And it was stuff throughout the entire year. It wasn't just, in March when things first started. I mean, that continued to Memorial Day weekend, to July.
Couldn't go to opening day for whatever sport you like.
Yeah.
July 4th. You couldn't do Independence Day.
Even into Thanksgiving and Christmas. We saw a lot of Thanksgivings and Christmases be a little different last year, and break some traditions with that as well for the exact same reasons. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things where I think I kind of talked about it the last Sunday check-in. Like you're doing that tradition, you don't necessarily think about it all that much, but then once you can't do it, all of a sudden it hits you a little bit. Like all of a sudden when you can't do it,
Give an example, because I have an example in my head of that.
Well, I mean, okay. I mean, think to the 10 event or to the you and Larry meeting up for kegs and eggs on St. Patrick's Day. Like you guys were doing that every single year, and then all of a sudden you couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And sit there and like, damn it! Like normally this is where I'd be. This is what I'd be doing. This is who I'd be hanging out with, and now I can't do it. But then a year later, once you finally could do it, it made you appreciate that tradition just a little bit more, I think.
Yeah, I think so. This is a prime example of like life getting in the way, right? So you do these traditions as you grow up. Another silly one for a lot of people, because I don't have kids. My life has taken different paths than a lot of people, but like playing softball in the summers. I just talked to a couple of the guys that I used to play softball with, and obviously it was canceled last year because of all this stuff. And everyone's kind of getting older. Most of the players are in their 30s, and I'm one of the older ones on the team. But I'm like, yeah, I'm in if we can get a team. And it's like, well, I can't play because I'm doing this, and I got kids doing this and stuff like that. And that life happens. But I also think that sometimes you do bail on some traditions or things that you like to do because you have been doing them. You look forward to them, but you're like, I'm just tired. I feel like I'm going to be too busy. No, I'm free that night, but it's my only free night and all this stuff. And you just start coming up with these reasons on why you can't do it. I was going to bring up, for a long time growing up, for Christmas, we would go over to my grandma's on my mom's side, and that was the big thing. So like, it was all the cousins and my aunts and uncles, and there were usually like about 20 some people there, and we would get around. We do the same thing. You do the dinner, you do the appetizer, everyone like kind of playing with toys. And as you get older, you don't have playing with toys as much. But you go around the room and you open up presents, and then you do the stockings, and then you do dinner, and then you do the, it's like all this stuff at grandma's house. And it's, now I have all these great memories of that. My grandma's passed, all my grandparents are passed, but and so they finally sold the house a few years ago, and I haven't been back to do family functions in a long time. And I feel like a lot of times then all of a sudden life will kind of pass you by a little bit because you got too busy with stuff or things were out of your control. Life happened. And I think that 2020 was one of those years that it was dictated to you that you can't do these traditions. And so now you created new traditions. Like I did a Zoom call on Christmas, and I was very upset about this. Like we used to, like the more recent one around the holidays, because it wasn't that long ago that we were doing this, the Christmas stuff and even Thanksgiving. Our family didn't get together for Thanksgiving this last year. For birthdays, we did some things like get together outside and stuff like that. Easter was different, and I'm not even religious anymore, but it's these things that were basically canceled by the world or by the government. And I look at it as like Christmas. I still went over to my mom's, and instead of having my brother and I and sniffing others and kids and all that stuff, it was just me and my mom. And I asked her, I was like, we should at least take a picture to keep that tradition alive. And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, put your mask back on and come over here. And I literally took a selfie of my mom and I with masks on in front of the Christmas tree because no one else was there. But I was like, well, this is the one. So if we ever have these things like framed where it's like, it's like, oh, this is, when, my niece and nephew is like this big, this big, this big. And this is 2020 in front of the tree. And this is, grandma and Uncle Steve with masks on, taking a selfie on his phone because no one was there to take a picture and no one else was in I just feel like you have to do something to keep these alive, even if they're placeholders. Don't just bail on them altogether unless you absolutely have to. You don't fuck with tradition. That's when things really change. And most traditions, when I talk about them, it's not like a negative thing. They're more positive, and there's meaning behind it. And it can be something like family holidays, or it could be something as stupid as, getting together and drinking beer and eating eggs in the morning on St. Patrick's Day, doing something with your friends or family. It could be something as trivial as like the Southie movie marathon. I don't know if anyone knows what that is, but it's like literally have people over in the garage and we watch movies all day long. It's a marathon of movies of Southie Boston accents. It's entirely stupid, but we have a great time.
Oh yeah.
And I literally bought a projector and a 100-inch screen for the first year in this house. And, I thought about that this last year, is that this is something that we didn't do because we weren't supposed to get together.
Yeah.
And I feel bad. I should have done something, but all I know is that this next spring, summer, or fall, I'm going to have Southie Movie Marathon again. And it might just be me, or it might be a bunch of people over here. I don't know. Because the year before it was on my birthday and there were fucking like 25 people here.
I was there.
I know you had like 3 steaks.
Well, yeah, I stopped by, grabbed some. That was, I think, the first Southie I came to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I was, that was the first one of those I went to and was like, man, I want to do this again. And then shit, couldn't do it again. So yeah, definitely looking forward to doing it again next time,
Well, Ian says, perhaps we shouldn't have allowed the government to crush so much. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole a whole lot, but I mean, I would agree. It's funny how, now we're opening things back up and we're still not completely there. Now we have the vaccine and people have different opinions. And so, with the vaccine, not to get again into that so much, I know it's important to my family and all these things I'm talking about. Both my mom and my brother sent me the link to the scheduling a vaccine thing because I'm 40 and in Ohio starting Friday, I can take the vaccine, and they want to get together. This is what makes them comfortable with it. So that's why I'm going to do it. Just because it's like, I want to be able to do this stuff. I don't want to miss out on these traditions. I don't want to miss out on this stuff because they're uncomfortable and none of us are experts on it. So as long as people aren't dying from it, then sure, go ahead. I inject myself with other things. Might as well do that one, right?
That sounds bad.
I had someone comment on the 10-year pictures, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a girl that used to be a bartender at one of the bars, and we're Instagram friends or whatever. And she doesn't comment on much, and she's just like, "Please tell me where this Fountain of Youth." You see that comment?
I did not see that comment.
Yeah, I'll pull it up. And it's not a Fountain of Youth or anything like that, but it was funny what she said here.
Well, you're finding that. I remember one of the traditions that I used to have, and some of my friends, we always used to get together Thanksgiving morning, and we would play football.
Yeah,
and we called it Turkey Bowl. So
yeah, right.
Literally, we had you had a bunch of guys in their late 20s, 30s, even early 40s getting together playing full contact tackle football, no pads.
Yeah, my buddy Big Rob broke a leg doing that.
We had one guy tear his knee.
There you go. Yeah, that's the last time, right?
Well, no, it actually wasn't. But no, like you said, then all of a sudden life happens. Like then some people moved away, some people had kids, and all of a sudden you no longer have the numbers to be able to do that event, and so everyone's like, well, we're not going to play a tackle football game with 5 people, so we're not going to do it this year.
Yeah.
And then the next year, people are like, oh, we didn't do it last year, so
that's how it happens. It falls apart.
And then as quickly as traditions can start, they can end just as quickly.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes you don't realize you're starting a tradition. No, so yeah, she wrote, okay, Benjamin Button, give me directions to the Fountain of Youth you're hiding. Well, 10 years ago, I was about still probably 30, 40 pounds heavier, and I was not shaving my head. I just had like more of like the beyond receding hairline, mostly around the sides and all that stuff, and just had chubby face. And it was funny, Larry, who I was with, he didn't have a beard, and we had both just been either going through or had our divorces, and we were not in the most stable place. But yes, give me directions to the Fountain of Youth you're hiding. And all I wrote back, it's all about whiskey, cigars, vitamins, and love. Maybe some other secrets too, like testosterone. Which I would not recommend to her. Yeah, right. So yeah, I mean, but it is taking care of yourself. I mean, I don't know. It's cool to see. Also reflecting back, talking about the pictures, like with this stuff, like you said, you don't even realize you're starting it. So when we were taking those pictures 10 years ago, and on Facebook Memories, like 7 years ago, and it was like 4 years ago, and we just did it. And I think a few years back, we thought about like, oh, we need to get our picture like we've done in the past. but we first took those pictures, you weren't thinking like, oh, we're going to meet back here every year for the rest of our lives and we're going to do this. No, it's like, no, we're going to get drunk today and make sure we get home safely. And then 10 years later, it's like, I got to work, but I will meet you there at 8:00. Like there was one year, I think it might've been 2 or 3 years ago, that I literally, like, I woke up at like 5, went to the gym, came back, showered, and like met them there at 7 when it opened up, just because like, no, we got to be there first thing. Now it's like, I'll be there like 8:30. Like, nah, all right, calm down. I'll get like 1, maybe 2 beers in me just to keep tradition going. We'll do it.
Well, sometimes traditions do change with age.
Mm-hmm.
I also think with traditions, like how you view those traditions changes with age as well.
Well, sometimes, yeah. I mean, well, go ahead.
Well, I was thinking,
you had
like,
a thought there. I'm sorry, I don't
like,
want to jump on it.
If you're a kid growing up and your parents have a tradition, like I think sometimes you're looking at, depending on what that tradition might be, you're sitting there like, oh, is this going to be something that's fun for me? And as a kid, like if it's not something that is a lot of fun and exciting, then it's one of those where it's like, oh, we're doing this again. It's that time of the year. But then, like, as you grow older and then you're still doing those traditions, or you're then doing those traditions maybe with your kids, you start having a different look at those traditions and different appreciation.
Yeah.
And you're now looking at those traditions with your family the way that your parents looked at them with you, because there's a different focus.
Well,
You're doing the tradition for a different reason.
Mm-hmm. All right, before we get too far, Deb noticed on the comments here, and I'll say this, is that now we're talking about the government shutdowns and stuff like that. That's why I don't want to go down this rabbit hole. I don't want to encourage that. And this is what I'll say about that as a more politically correct type thing that's not even politically correct anymore. But talking about like shutting things down, and now, all right, Ian and Brian, I need you guys to take a step back.
They're going to go at each other.
Take a step back. Here's what I'll say to both of you and anyone out there on any sides of this. The entire last year, there is no control in this experiment. We don't have a playbook, and so we don't know if we would have shut down things earlier or if we wouldn't have shut down things at all. There's no control. So I appreciate the opinions. I love the comments, and I would encourage you that if you guys, Brian and Ian, want to talk about that, be friendly, and don't do it on the feed, because I feel like we're going to miss the point of what we're talking about tonight. That's all I'll say. I don't want to discourage you guys talking, because I think that you guys hopefully can have an intelligent adult conversation about it. But I just want to say, on behalf of the podcast, is that I've gone down those rabbit holes a little bit over the last year at different times about accountability and everything like that. But all I know is that this is the first time that they've done what they've done, as far as the world, and we're still in this situation. There's no thing like, well, if we would have done things differently, it would have done this, because we don't know.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's a guessing game.
That's a guessing game.
I
mean, again, I encourage you guys to have a conversation, because I find those conversations, I've had them, I find them very stimulating, as long as you keep it respectful.
I had someone
off my soapbox.
I had someone message me a question. If you didn't have Facebook memories, would you have realized you had a tradition?
With this, yeah. I mean, because
this is a marquee event, is a day. It's a special day that only happens once a year. So.
We made it special because it was something that we used to get together. This pub, Fido, and just Tinder Box right next door. That's how. I mean, this podcast would never have happened if I didn't find Tinder Box and Fido. Didn't have these memories. We knew this. This is something that, again, 2 years ago, it was like, you don't fuck with tradition. And I was saying that then. But it's fun to see. It's like, holy shit, I've been doing this long.
Mm-hmm.
Facebook Memories does that, same thing. Today, basically, it was either me taking pictures with Larry or maybe a couple other people at certain years. Also, I was focusing at the gym most of those days too, on the 17th.
Mm-hmm.
Just like today, like I posted again. It was like, between going on a walk this morning, hitting up Fido for a couple of beers and doing kegs and eggs. Then I worked in the shop, and then I went straight to the gym, and then I had to run errands, and I came here to do the podcast tonight. It's a long day.
Yeah.
It's a long day, but you still do it all. And so that's where I like the memories there. Brian says, Steve, traditions are great, but it's okay to embrace change as well. Just stay positive with whatever comes up. I agree. And sometimes you can actually, I think, harness some of that, and you can adapt the traditions.
Have you ever started a tradition?
Southie Movie Marathon.
Southie, yeah. Anything else?
The podcast every Wednesday.
I don't know if that counts as I wouldn't.
You'll look back at it. It's a tradition.
I wouldn't necessarily count that as a tradition. I would say Whiskey Wednesday.
Yeah, we didn't create that though. I think that was just an alliteration that someone came up with at some point that we just harnessed.
But it was a group of guys, meeting together on Wednesdays to drink whiskey, smoke cigars, and have the kind of conversation that we're having now that happens in cigar shops all across the country. It then evolved into a podcast.
Yeah, but I agree. And the valid point. I'd say one of the things that I didn't start it, but I mean, it was one of the things that we looked at like a weekly thing back in the late 2000s when I started going into the Tinder Box and the pub next door, Fido Irish Pub. It was Thursdays of all things. And Larry was one of those people that one evolved from, my understanding, from Jewish Thursday, because a bunch of Jewish guys smoking cigars at Fido and all that stuff. And then it just became cigar people. And we were like, that was another thing that popped up on my memories is we would have like 8 tape, like something, you just go up on Thursday and you'd either go up with your friend or by yourself and you look over at Fido on the patio and be like, oh yeah, I'll go sit down with that person. And then there were other ones where it's like we were there until 1 a.m. on Thursday night and there were 8 tables pushed together and there's like 25 people there and just happened to be on Thursdays for whatever reason. I don't know. It's super irresponsible as grown adults that had jobs. But it was just like, it's Thursday. What are we doing? Oh, we got to go up to Fido and see who's up there. You didn't text. You didn't check if anyone was going to be up there. You just popped in there. And there was some really cool. Ray Cheshire was in some of those pictures.
Oh, wow. That's going back. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then those slowed down, stopped. Everyone, again, like either moved away, did other things, and we don't do it anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of hard for Ray to do that when he's in Vietnam.
But he normally chimes in here because of those nights.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you adapt. And I agree. Brian says it's okay to embrace change as well. I understand. And whether it's voluntary, if you're trying to change it, or if something happens, like we talk about on this podcast a lot, is that sometimes things happen and the traditions don't happen anymore. So you might have to adapt it because either you lost a loved one, you went through a breakup, you lost a job, you did all these things that are outside of your control, or sometimes you do have a child or you have an addition to your life, that life happens that you can't do the stuff that I'm talking about, like play softball, But I know some people that have had kids and there's some silly traditions that they have. I'm not even talking about the sentimental ones like Christmas or Easter egg hunts and stuff like that. You know what I mean? When someone passes away, like, all right, someone picks up the baton and goes with it, runs with it. But it's even the silly ones, like even with kids, it's like, all right, so like we can't get as drunk this year at Southie Movie Marathon because kids are going to be there. Or like there was another tradition I had up at my buddy Tony's place in Marengo. It was for 4th of July, and before there were kids, it was like you go up there to his place, plan on either bringing a tent or if you had, like, I stayed in a guest room because I used to work in the morning after that, because it was after I was already in retail, or I was even at the moving company I worked on weekends. So but it's like you drank, you had fun. They lit off fireworks after drinking, which was stupid. I do not condone that, but it happens. And then we also did like slip and slide flip cup, which is amazing. Does anyone not know what that is? I feel like a lot of people don't know what that is. They didn't at the time.
So I know what flip cup is. So I'm assuming you went down a slip and slide and then had a flip cup.
Yeah, so it's like a relay race, right? So it's the same thing. So all teams are up there, right at the top of the hill, right? And you have this big tarp, and it's really long. A lot of soap on there, a lot of water, really slick. And you basically, say start, and the first 2 people slide down. Then you get up and you have to do your cup, drink, you chug whatever's in the cup, and then you have to do flip cup. And as soon as you make yours land, then you raise your hand, the next person on your team slides down. And then that's how it works. It's very physical. It's an elite competition.
getting back up the
Only
hill.
it's not that big of a hill. I mean, it's more of like it's a hill. It's not a mountain, all right? That's what the soap's for. You really slide down that thing. It's a mess.
That's how you get to the end.
But it got to the point where, and I haven't been able to make it, but I mean, when people like kids started being involved, it's like, no. This is an adult only party. Like, you need to find a babysitter for this event. So you adapt. Going back to that point. Kevin Landers had a great comment here. I'm going to put it up on screen. I love this because I know this is a very, he holds a very dear to his heart. One of my great traditions was meeting my dad at football games, and we would always be surprised each other with a hard to find cigars. So that's cool. I mean, I know that, like, and he's a big Oregon fan, college sport or football. So I know that was huge, very huge for him. I think that's really cool. One of my things with my dad was, and it was not an annual thing, but him and my brother and we didn't do a lot together after like playing baseball, and he was coach when we were kids, but James Bond movies. When those would be released, we would go and go to the theater and watch those movies. So, I mean, this one that's been delayed now for almost a year. My brother and I don't go to movies together, really. He goes with his family, but I'm definitely going to reach out and see if we want to keep that tradition alive. Maybe bring the niece and nephew or anyone else. Maybe take his father-in-law. I think his father-in-law went to the last one when Spectre.
Okay.
The one that started in Mexico City. Is that, that one?
Yeah.
We couldn't figure out because you walked in and they had 3D glasses on the chairs. And we're like, we didn't buy the 3D ticket. And that scene, it was an IMAX. So the scene is so, if anyone's seen that Bond movie, but it was like the scene is like so crazy. Everything's going on. And like, we kept like putting these 3D glasses on. And I remember it was like me, my dad, my brother, and my brother's father-in-law. And we throw the 3D glasses on. I'm like, I don't think that's right. Because my eyes always take a while to get adjusted to that. It kind of fucks with my eyes. And so then I'm like, I don't think it is. So then I take them off. I'm like, that's not much better either. I look over and they're all wearing the glasses. I'm like, all right, so I'll put mine on. I was like, this is 3D. Like, Jesus, like, why are these here? And it was about 5 to 10 minutes into the movie that finally I determined, like, this isn't a 3D movie. And the last person I looked down is Bob, my brother's father-in-law, and he's still got him on. I'm like, it's like, Dad, I don't think it's 3D. And he takes him off. He's like, I think you're right. And then he like kind of elbows my brother. I don't think it's 3D. And my brother says, I think you're right. And then we're all watching the movie, and I look over. It's been like 3 more minutes, and then there's Bob Bird sitting there with 3D glasses on. He's just like kind of doing this. I'm like, Bob, yeah, all 3 of them are named Bob. And I'm like, Bob, tell Bob that it's not 3D. Oh, Jesus. See, those are why the traditions are so important, because you have these stupid memories that you have 4 grown men, 2 different generations wearing 3D glasses because they're there. Talk about blind faith. Jesus Christ. I just remember looking over there. He's like, I can see him moving his head too. He's like kind of doing this, like trying to make it work.
How close were you guys sitting?
It wasn't even that close. It was IMAX. It was big.
Yeah. Okay.
That was the thing. It wasn't a full theater. Sean asked if everyone else was wearing them, and it's dark. So I'm like, I'm doing that. I'm literally like, I'm kind of like looking behind me to see if anyone else has them. And like, it's all over theater. So like this person over here on my right is wearing them. I look over to my left and they're not wearing them. I'm like, well, this isn't helping at all. Like I about like left the theater to like go to like the front and be like, is theater 4 3D or not? Because none of us can figure it out. Why the fuck did you put these glasses on there? I don't know. Hell, it could have been 3D, but we as a collective unit decided it wasn't, and we took off 3D glasses, and it was good enough. Because it's not like the old school where it's like red and blue and fuzzy. It's kind of like, yeah. Anyways, let's throw up a few more of these traditions. This is what I love here. So let's see. Brian, who was chiming in earlier. So Brian Henson says, I miss a Christmas mid-morning run to CVS with my bro-in-law to grab whatever missing ingredient for dinner, which also usually included more chips and a Monster energy drink. Yeah, you needed the Monster to deal with family, I'm sure. But yeah, so those are those little things, right? Like, I mean, obviously it's like, oh yeah, we'll get together. We got everything. You bring this, you bring this. And then obviously Brian and his brother-in-law are like looking at their watch, be like, all right, how long do we have to figure out what we're missing? We got to hit up CVS on Christmas. Got another one. Hang on. I want to
Go ahead.
this. Let's see. John, our tradition is going to Put in Bay on Labor Day weekend with our buddies for the last 16 years. Don't forget to try those cigars from, and yeah, you brought the Great Lakes Tobacconist. Right. Thank you for the plug there too. He says, don't forget to try the cigars from Great Lakes Tobacconist. He brought those. He's from Pittsburgh area. Came in this last weekend for Paddy's Day weekend since they couldn't come to Smoking 10 event. So they still had a trip planned this year, and they all came in and they just basically just plopped down on.
Oh yeah, they stayed at the hotel.
They stayed at the hotel, stopped in Tinder Box several times each day, stayed at Fido on the patio most of the day, and I love it. But
yeah, I remember sitting there going, "Oh, round 2. All right, what do you guys need this time? Round 3? What are you getting?"
But the bigger point I get of it is putting Bay on Labor Day weekend with our buddies for the last 16 years.
Yeah,
let me say this, John, and to everyone else out there, there are some family things. What I've noticed now before this last year, and I'm curious to see what happens with the generations coming up. There's this whole thing that they need variety a lot of times. I've noticed that, us growing up, it was like as a kid, and not everyone did this. There were people that traveled the world, and I can totally appreciate that. But I think as you get older, and you see people come together, starting families and stuff like that, there are sometimes they're not on the same page because of their upbringing. Like we would go back to Chicago 2-3 times a year to see family. While other people are going, I'm going on Florida, I'm going on the Carolinas, I'm going over to the West Coast, I'm doing all this stuff. And it's like, what'd you do for vacation? I went to the suburbs of Chicago to spend Christmas and this and that. Like that was our vacation. So taking family vacation time was to do that, to visit family because we weren't with them. And then there was Door County, which is the Green Bay, right? So Green Bay is here in Wisconsin. And then, you have this peninsula, that's Door County. And family went up there a lot. And so instead of finding a new place every year, every summer, we would go to Door County. And those are those traditions that not everyone understands. I'm interested. So it's him saying he's gone to Put in Bay for the last 16 years to even be with buddies. I love that.
Yeah.
Now, if you can combine that with going on new vacations as well, I think these are those things that it's like you can't just take every vacation because you have rent, you have mortgage, you have responsibilities. You can't just drop everything and go. Mm-hmm. If you can, great. And I'd love to have that wealth and flexibility, but I like that tradition to a point. I like that family vacation to the same place. If it's a way to bring people together, I'm not as much for one where it's like, hey, we go to the same place, like you got a wife, kid, husband, wife, traditional family or whatever. Why, 2 kids, whatever, and you go to the same place every year. That's going to get boring.
That's what,
in my opinion. But if you go there to meet with friends or family and it brings people back, right? So it's like that's that annual tradition or whatever it is. Everyone's moved away, but you keep that core from whatever point in life that might be. And like, John's saying is that his buddies get together. And I'm going to assume that you don't all live in the same place. You know what I mean? So maybe it's like, hey, this is the weekend. Whoever can make it, let's make it. And let's keep this tradition going for a weekend. I love that.
That's kind of like what family reunions are.
Yeah, can be.
Because I know my dad's family. My mom's family doesn't have a family reunion because just about everyone in the family lives in the Central Ohio area.
Yeah.
There's one aunt and uncle of mine that are out in Oklahoma, but everyone else lives here and they do monthly get-togethers for birthdays. Mm-hmm. So there's no real family reunion. My dad's side of the family, though, every year we usually go down to Kentucky Labor Day weekend in September because my dad and his brother and siblings, most of them are up here. And then the other side of the family down, they still live in different parts of Kentucky, but then we all get together in the family land, or as we call it, the Hale Holler, that is down in Eastern Kentucky. that's been in the family for generations.
Yeah.
And so we get together down there, and there was one year where, kind of like what you said, there was a giant slip and slide, and there's really no adults going down the slip and slide. It's for the kids, but it's
Same thing as we were doing.
the kids weren't playing flip cup.
You don't know that.
I do know that. I was there watching it. There was no flip cup table.
Should have been. Kool-Aid.
But no, I mean, and then I know I've missed doing that the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But that's because that's always on a on a weekend. And when I started working at the Tinder Box, one of the main reasons I was brought on to the Tinder Box was to work Saturdays.
Yeah.
And so I always have a hard time, especially me being the low man on the totem pole. I have a hard time asking, because it's a holiday. Everyone else has been there longer than me. They have families. They have people that they want to hang out with since it's a holiday weekend. It's hard for me to sit there and be like, hey, I want to take that Friday and Saturday off. Can someone else cover those shifts? I kind of just took it upon myself, like, well, this is one of those sacrifices I have to make. I can't make that tradition as much as I want to, because I've other
Don't give up
responsibilities.
on it, though. I mean, you can always ask, right? This year we'll do this. That was something that it reminds me. It's funny that, John says about that put and bay thing. That is the one weekend the wives let us go without them. That's why they've made it 16 years straight. And good for you on all those accounts that your wives put up with you, first of all, and second, that they let you do that.
They probably want to get rid of them as much.
Well, so one of the things that my ex-wife and I had to deal with a little bit, and even when I've been dating other people as well, is that holidays, right? So you get to like Thanksgiving and Christmas, and as you're getting together or you're growing up, right? I have my family traditions and they have their family traditions, and as you go, and a lot of people listening out there, I think, can relate to that, is that if both families are still going, strong, it's like, okay, well, I want to go to my Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's like, well, I want to go to my Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Oh, it's tough.
And so you're just like, okay, well, this year we'll go to your Thanksgiving and my Christmas, and then next year we'll plan on doing the opposite. Or if you make them all work, that's fine. If the families, and again, it depends on how big the families are, because I know that sometimes it's like, all right, so we'll do Thanksgiving on Thursday morning, so you can do Thursday afternoon. But if you have to travel, it's like, all right, so we're going to do ours on Thursday, so then you do that one on Saturday. But then it's like, if you have multiple siblings, or like, as it gets more and more complex, it gets complicated. So you have to sacrifice a little bit. But I encourage you not to give up on it completely if you don't have to.
I know that's what we had. We tried doing that when Jess and I first got married, is doing the whole rotation, Thanksgiving, Christmas, next year do the opposite. But we both had family members that were getting up there in age.
Yeah.
And we always threw out that line, well, I don't know how many of these holidays I'm going to have left. And it's a little easier if you all live close together.
Sure.
If you have to travel, that obviously makes it a little more difficult. And even with my in-laws, a lot of them live 2 hours away, and that trying to hit everybody when you have that travel, because that means we got to travel 2 hours there, do everything there, then travel 2 hours back. By the time I get back, I'm just spent. And
I've done like the 3 Thanksgiving dinners in one day and then driving an hour and a half back. It sucks.
Yeah.
But I have good memories.
Yeah. Sean?
Yeah, I just want to share one real quick. We started a tradition with a group of, I think there was 16 of us, and we go golfing every year down in South Carolina. It's called Santee, South Carolina, but we started in 1996. And I did it up until Molly came home, which was 2009.
Wow.
And they're still doing it every year.
You haven't been since?
No, just because.
You plan on trying again?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to. It's just the way my jobs fell on the vacation that I had, the time that I had.
Life gets in the way sometimes.
Yeah, I was having to use that time to do things with Teresa and Molly. But man, that was like every year you would start counting the days in January, and we'd go in April.
Yeah.
And it was like, no matter how hard those days would get, you always had that to look forward to. And I think that's one thing I love about traditions too. There's always life gets in the way, and if you can maintain a tradition, something that you really really love and you just cherish, you just that helps you get through those. When you starting to count those days, man, you're like, you start texting everybody or emailing everybody. All right,
Yeah.
30 more days, 20 more days, and we're doing another tradition we're going to go to Outer Banks this summer.
Who is?
My wife and I are meeting a family down there.
Nice.
And we used to do it years on end up until 2015 when I had the heart thing, but it'll be the first time going back. But anyways, again, we'll start counting the days here soon. But I think that's an important part of that. Something if you really really love and cherish, when it's the excitement of it approaching is a good part to
tradition.
Appreciate.
Yeah.
I think it also presents an opportunity. So if you have it to where you can't make it down there because all of a sudden you have a kid and you have things to do up here, you can always turn that around and say, okay, normally I would be going down to South Carolina to play golf with some buddies. What can we do here? And so you actually use that as an opportunity to start a tradition with your family. So that way you can keep that going. And then if the situation arises that you can go and rejoin those guys for that golf trip, you still can. But now you also have another tradition. It's not like one's a backup plan, one's a primary, but maybe you could alternate it, but it still gives you the chance to where if you can't do one, you at least have something else to do.
Right. I think that beach is a good combo.
No, it sounds like it. I mean, I agree. It's funny, when I think back to our Thanksgiving episode, we kind of talked about something different.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys remember that one, I actually, it's gonna really, for many reasons, that's gonna stay with me this last Thanksgiving and what we talked about prior to it, and that is, what are you gonna be thankful for next year, as opposed to what were you thankful for?
Mm-hmm.
If you remember that.
Mm-hmm.
This is one that I think that if you guys have had traditions, if you guys have laxed on some of the traditions that you appreciated growing up, or even before this last year, in 2020, where you couldn't do some of the traditions with family or friends or traveling or events like we had talked about with Paddy's Day and the Smoking Tent event and all this stuff is... And anyone out there listening, throw it on the comment feed. I love the conversation. You guys throwing out some of your traditions. Those were great. Those are really heartwarming. Like, what do you guys want to start or revisit going into this next year? You have the opportunity, or hopefully we have the fucking opportunity, but it's like, you have the opportunity to either start something like Nate was kind of saying, you were saying with the beach thing, Sean, and you have the opportunity to start something. What do you guys think? I mean, I think we're going to look back at this is like starting over in a lot of ways. This year coming out of 2020. So we have an opportunity to start either new traditions or just to revisit old traditions that we might have been relaxed on and not looking forward to every year or every week or whatever it might be. Is there anything that comes to your mind, Nate, or even Sean in the garage, or anyone out there listening? John, apparently hasn't missed 16 years because the wives will let him go without him, but other than that, I mean, can you think of anything or the opportunity to do something differently now that we're, quote, starting over? I've heard it on the fucking news all the time. Pisses me off, but maybe right.
Well, I mean, I know with us, we started our own tradition. I think
Sundays.
Yeah. The tail end of 2019. So even before COVID, my wife and I started our own tradition. And we call it Steak and Wine Sunday, and that's exactly what it is. I will cook up a couple steaks and a side dish, and we'll drink a bottle of wine. So my wife's tradition now is on Saturdays when she goes grocery shopping, she will get a bottle or two of wine, and then that's what we'll have. And then what I started doing several months ago to kind of tweak it a little bit is we have a sleeve, like a wine bottle sleeve.
Yeah, you talked about it before. Yeah.
And I will pick a bottle and I will put it in that sleeve and we'll pour and drink and basically do a blind tasting of that bottle. And because, yes, I know what the bottle is. I don't know why my wife bought it. I don't know what her expectations were for that bottle. So she doesn't know what it is. And so, she's giving her honest opinion about that bottle. And then all of a sudden, after we have a glass, then I'll actually pull the bottle out of the sleeve. And so sometimes she's sitting there going, "Oh, I was hoping this would be better." But then other times she's like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, this is actually really good. This is something that we should keep on hand."
Yeah.
So even doing that own tradition, kind of evolved, within its own sub tradition within it. But it's something that we look forward to every single week.
That's good.
Is doing that steak and wine and going to the store and Dan, Hockey Dan, that's been on the podcast before. He's a meat cutter at Kroger, and so Jess will actually go and visit him, and he'll cut up a whole tenderloin for us, and we'll have fillets for about 2 months. And then like another tradition that we had, it kind of evolved over time, was how we celebrate our birthdays. So like for my birthday, we go to Ocean Club there at Easton. There have been a couple times that we've gone to someplace else and it's never been as good. So that's why we always end up keep going back to Ocean Club for my birthday, which is on New Year's Eve, because it's kind of fun to go out there, and then we're home before all the crazy people are out on the roads. But then for my wife's birthday, I make dinner for her. And so I'll make steaks and scallops or shrimp or crab legs, but usually steak and then something else. But that just became our tradition. So it became something to look forward to.
I want to touch on this. First of all, Jody Jacks out there says, I love seeing the Sunday steak and wine.
I didn't always do that. That's something I only started doing a couple months ago.
You went high voice a little bit there. She's not attacking you. She's actually complimenting you. Like, all right.
No, I appreciate that, Jody. I appreciate that.
Say thank you.
Because then that'll keep me going.
Just say thank you. Yeah. Man. Jody, that was very sweet of you to say, is what Nate wanted to say in a very calm manner. This is Nate.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You took that wrong.
Maybe you took it wrong. Sean, before I lose this tradition, it has to be what's good for you, or good for you and the family, or your significant other, or your friends. I don't want to get it confused that tradition typically is doing the same thing, because I will say we're in the day and age with all these options out there, right? That if you do the same thing over and over again, you might get bored unintentionally. Now, if you're enjoying it, like you did highlight on it, Nate, that you guys have tried going to other restaurants and it's never been as good, you're disappointed. So you're like, all right, we've tried it, we've done this, but this is still our tradition, is to go out to birthday dinner or to do, cook something up. It's not as good. Let's do this again. And I feel like there is I don't want to say generation, but there's people that it's okay. A tradition is to do something regularly, but it could be doing something different. Ian says, I'm adding another week-long trip to the family vacations, but it'll be to some national park around the country. Something like, as a couple, that I think can have some success. There are some couples that when things are really going well and all that stuff, and it's like, hey, we go to the same restaurant. This is our Monday thing. This is our monthly thing, whatever it might be. We go to our favorite restaurant. We order the same stuff. That's fun, right? But I think sometimes when you hit a rut in life that is outside of that, sometimes, and there's other people that really this is what the tradition is, that, all right, we have date night once a week, every other week.
Movie date night.
Well, hang on.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you. You go date night and you pick a different place every time, but it's that day. It's that Monday. It's that second Monday of the month, because it's so fucking busy with your kids and everything else. But you can have this tradition, Or every June we take a vacation, but it's somewhere different. I know the way I was raised, it was like we kept going back to the same places, but I do think there's some validity there that if you want some variety, but also have the stable like steadiness, this is date night, this is vacation week, or this is whatever it might be, but we won't go to the same place twice until you miss that place. Which is kind of what you were saying, Nate. That's why I didn't want to lose this thought, Sean. I'm sorry. But there's something there that it's like sometimes you can say, hey, let's try different stuff. And you're like, why don't we just go back to this place? Because we had such a good time. These have all been disappointments. The last 4 months we've gone out to this, or the last 4 years we've done different things for our birthdays. Or if you have like a date night during the week, if you're able to do that, we haven't been back to this place. The last few weeks been great. I'm happy we're doing it. Food sucked. The wine sucked. Service sucked. But remember when we went back to this place? It's really simple. We really liked it. We had a good time. Well, you might go back there and it's not the same as it was before. That's sometimes what happens with traditions, I feel like, is that you think every year you go back, it's going to be, oh, bring back all these memories. And then there's that one time you go back there, whether it be like, again, a weekly thing, a monthly thing, or an annual thing. And you're like, this isn't what it used to be. And I think that's one of those things that maybe you can incorporate a little bit of the variety, but the steadiness into tradition.
Variety within tradition.
Yeah. Yeah. Sean, go ahead.
Yeah, we adopted our daughter from China back in 2009, and we had a tradition.
You're talking to the wrong side of the mic.
Flip that around there.
It did feel a little weird. Sorry.
That's what she said.
Yep.
Go ahead.
So I'm all kind of
start over. You adopted Molly.
Yeah, we adopted our daughter in 2009, and one of the traditions they call it Gotcha Day. That's what they call it. So
gotcha.
That's what for whatever reason you celebrate that every year. We call it we call it Family Day, and for the first probably 5 or 6 years, we'd have like a get together, like bring family in and celebrate it with our close friends and family, cook out. And we haven't done it in the past 2 years, and you brought up the question, like, what's a good thing you could start a new tradition? I'd like to bring that one back. Maybe once people, once COVID dies down, and maybe by the end of like in the fall or something, we could do that again. But that was great because it's good to bring people together, and it's also good to celebrate bringing this child into our life, and not just our lives, but our family and friends too. So
that was the anniversary of when you guys
usually
back?
It was in July. Sometimes we wait until the fall.
Gotcha's a little aggressive,
and that's why we don't call it that.
Can we rename that?
Yes, we call it
when you go to another country and come back with a child.
That's why I call it Family Day now.
That's why I call it Family Day. We didn't like Gotcha either. It's like stupid.
Gotcha.
But it's weird.
Yeah. What's Gotcha Day? So we went to this other country and we brought back a child.
Kidnapped.
Gotcha.
That's a crime.
Yeah.
Go on.
Legally, we did it.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think that it'd be something I like to bring back, because it always was. It was good to bring people back and realize, this child we brought home has touched so many people's lives, and we can kind of celebrate that. So
I love it.
That's awesome.
I love it. So I got a couple more. I love the community. If you guys are listening on the audio, this is a chance, if you're free on Wednesdays, and you can bear with us for a couple hours here, and or tune in later. That's fine. Brian, forgive me. I feel like you're a newer listener because I don't remember seeing your name as much. My boys are 6 and 2. My oldest son had us start having birthday parties for stuffed animals a couple of years ago. So every few months we'll buy a couple of gifts from Dollar Tree and wrap them up and sing happy birthday to them. That's gonna make me puke. It's so cute. That's ridiculous. Spider-Man is 7, Curious George is 6, and Bugs Bunny is 39. I got him when I was 1. I want to know, what are you doing for the big 4-0 for Bugs Bunny? Because I had a good 40th birthday, and I'm just curious how his is going to stack up to mine. And do your kids know, your boys know that Bugs is about to turn 40? That's cute as shit, and I'm going to puke. I hope they're not listening, because Jody says, I'm trying to make new traditions with my kiddos. We are starting with our first beach spring break next week. I want to make it an annual trip for something for us to look forward to. Sean was talking about. at their age, they love traditions and know what to look forward to. And I think, Jody, I think that's something that they may, based on those things, they're going to probably go back to some of those beach vacations that they went to as a kid, and they're going to try to do it as young adults or young parents, or all that stuff. I think that's great. That's where I'm saying traditions can sometimes stay the same, but if you find a beach you like, I know plenty of friends and family members that have done the same beach over and over again, and I've had some that are like, no, we just do a different beach every year. So again, you can incorporate the variety, as you said, Nate, the variety into the tradition. Ian says, well, I have two now, one to the beach and one to the mountains, but I want to share some of the things I've seen in the 49 states I've been in. So again, there's a variety there. So I think that might be the new wave. There's not as many people, in my opinion, at this point, that they are doing the same thing over and over again. Because especially with families, I think that's the old way of doing it. I think with these younger generations, 30s, 20s, teens, kids being, in their 0 to 10 right now, they need variety. They get bored quickly. You get them a video game, you get them whatever it is, and it's like, all right, I'm done with it. It's like, that was 4 days ago. Next, what are we doing now? You know what I mean? Or you get them a toy. Like when we were kids, like I feel like it was like, yeah, you got a toy for Christmas or whatever it was, or whatever the birthday or whatever, and you're done with it in a week and a half because you're just done with it. Now it's boom, 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 and I think that mentality has been something that my generation, being in the 80s, has transpired into now having kids, that we had that going for a while, where now it's been exponentially worsened almost, that it's like you need some variety. You do the same thing over and over again as life goes on with your kids. And again, not being a parent, I know how I was as a kid. That vacation meant something to you when you were 8. When you were 12, it meant something different. When you were 16, it meant something different. When you were 18, 20, it's not the same thing. And so I think that's something that, as parents or older people, these traditions, it has to have some variety. Just in this conversation, I mean, this was not premeditated. This was in this conversation. I feel like the variety of tradition is one thing. For me, going to Fido every year, that's cool. I don't need to go to another Irish pub. Like if something like, hey, Larry, let's go to Ireland this year for St. Patrick's Day. It's like, all right, cool. Or we could just go to Fido like we do every year and just have beer at 8 o'clock in the morning. And like, yeah, let's just do that because we're comfortable with that. So you gotta figure out the comfort level and if you need that variety or not. What are you laughing?
I'm laughing at Ian. When I was a kid, we had a rat killing every spring.
That's an interesting transition. Grandma made us when she made us jive the wood pile every year after winter. Ian, I'm more and more fascinated with you every week. I love the variety of our listeners and their candid responses.
Let me ask you something, Steve. What is a tradition?
I've never had a rat killing in my family. Not as a tradition.
Is there a tradition that you enjoyed as a kid that you miss as an adult?
Oh, that is a good question.
I can give you one if you want to take time to.
From my childhood?
Yeah.
No, you can give me one from my childhood.
No, I was gonna talk about one of mine if you needed time to think of one of your own.
Tell me real quick. Tell me one that I missed from my childhood. It is impressive. I mean, we've had a lot of like late night heart to hearts. You probably could. You probably could. I'm like, I fucking told you that. Like Jesus. Like, what were we drinking and where were we? Why don't I remember?
It was probably a Saturday at the Tinder Box after hours.
For me, it's just childhood memories. It's getting together for those holidays. I used to when we go to Chicago, stay at grandma's house, and then my aunt and uncle lived in the same suburb where my mom and my dad met. We always had the one day was at grandma's, and so all the other cousins and aunts and uncles around Chicago area where they're all at, and they would come. But Christmas Eve service, like as a kid, and with the time change, being just an hour away, daylight savings time, for just so you know, like I can have a talk with my mom today, being 40, and be like, I feel off this week. And she's like, well, it's because the time changed. I'm like, what? That's right. As a kid, this just fucked me up. I mean, it's like done. It's like, I don't know what it is, but I mean, like you changed the time on me and my whole world's just messed for about 10 days. But yeah, it was, I miss it now because it's like fond memories of going to the 11 o'clock Christmas Eve service. And it's just about the fact that I was so miserable, which is ironic. I'm tired. I don't want to dress up. We're just going to sit in that dark church. And I was really, I was a kid, but I after that, I was religious during my high school years. It was like, and then I'm halfway falling asleep, like during the service, because they turn off all the lights. And then my aunt was in the choir in the background on the, the second story of the beautiful St. John's Church. And I hated my life at that moment. I think I was like 11. And I remember hating my life. And so it's ironic that you asked, like, what do I miss as a tradition? Those are one of those. I wish I could go back now and have everyone around me. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, this is nice. This is nice. We're all together.
Because
Christmas Eve,
as an adult, you'd be looking at it from a different perspective.
Yeah, I was so miserable. I just wanted to go home, sleep on that couch that was in my grandma's living room because everyone else was in the bedrooms. Yeah. The other time at my grandma's house I was miserable was when I actually slept on that couch in the living room. And they're like, it's like 9 o'clock, which for me as a kid was like super late with the time change. And they wanted to play Trivial Pursuit. Why don't you get down on the floor and move the pieces? Why don't you get off my couch so I can go to sleep? These are the traditions that at the time are miserable, but I do enjoy them. Go ahead, Nate. Probably more positive than mine.
Yeah. There's two traditions I remember as a kid that I do kind of miss. One was around Christmas at my dad's family. When we go to my grandmother's for Christmas, my grandparents would always get this giant cardboard box, and every time someone opened a gift, that was for all the wrapping paper and all the trash.
Yeah.
So they'd unwrap a present, look at it, cool, ball up all the wrapping paper and throw it in the box. When I was a kid, my job was to stand in the box and crush down all the wrapping paper. It sounds silly. It sounds stupid.
No, it's a job's a job.
Exactly.
You say to the job's done.
It made me felt important because later on in the afternoon, 4 of them would always play euchre, and I would always get mad that I didn't get to be invited to the game of euchre. So at least crushing the wrapping paper was something that I look forward to. Another one I remember was, and this was after my parents had split, on Wednesday nights, I'd go to church with my mom. After church, my mom was the choir director, and they would always have choir practice after church on Wednesday nights. And my dad was a UPS driver. And when he would get done with his route for that day, he would come and pick me up from church. And there were many Wednesday nights where I'm sitting on the steps inside, just looking out this bay of windows, just waiting for my dad's old blue Chevy to just drive down the road.
These are just memories.
And
it's great.
And so, and I'd sit there and I could tell which vehicle was my dad's. And I'd see my dad's truck. I'd see my dad's truck driving down the road. I'd start walking out the door, and he would pick me up. We'd go to Taco Bell, and then we would go back to my mom's house, and my dad and I would play Nintendo together.
What'd you get at Taco Bell every year?
At the time, they called them Cholitos.
But it was the same thing every time, wasn't it?
Yes.
That's what I mean. That's my point.
Yeah. So he would always pick me up. We'd go to Taco Bell. I was getting the same thing.
Traditions a lot of times are very specific.
Yeah. And that's the reason why several years ago, for my birthday, it was either my birthday or Christmas. It's hard to tell because they're so close together.
rough childhood. Yeah. Because of that.
My wife actually bought me an old Nintendo NES system, and I actually still have the game cartridge that my dad and I always used to play. And so, like, I've mentioned it to my dad before, like, hey, you should come over. We should go to Taco Bell, bring it back to the house, and then after we eat Taco Bell, go down to the basement and play this game again. Neither one of us remember, back then we could sit there and beat that game blindfolded.
What was the game?
It's called Jackal.
Yeah.
And that's where you were a military jeep, and you would have to destroy the enemy and pick up soldier. Yeah, that's what my dad and I would play every single one.
You don't fuck with tradition.
And I miss that as like technology fucked that one up.
Which part?
The playing the Nintendo.
You just got to blow off the cartridge a little bit. You know what I mean? All right, Sean, go ahead, and then I want to put some comments out there from the feed because I love this. I mean, this is deeper.
Yeah.
This was kind of the hope, right? You don't fuck with tradition. I mean, start out with like some trivial stuff, and that was a great question, Nate, about what I missed and all that stuff. Bring up some childhood stuff. You were thinking about it, and I think this is something that people don't realize. I think we missed a lot of this. That's why I don't want to dive down. We missed a lot this last year, and people realized it, but they were like, "It's okay because it's for the greater good." No, you fucked with tradition. It's not okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sean.
I was real quick. I thought when your wife said she got you something from back in the day, it was going to be a box with a bunch of wrapping paper you could step on to feel important again.
That's what you want to comment?
No.
They were two separate stories.
No,
I know. Like, what a weird interjection.
Yeah. No. What I
hold that mic a little further away.
When I was younger, we would go to midnight mass, and I was a server. My dad and I were.
Yeah.
He kind of ran it. So, and it's kind of a funny tradition. We'd serve the midnight mass, and it was always packed, and it was just kind of cool to be up there. Of course, my dad would always fall asleep on the altar, but it was a different story.
It's a story I want you to share on the community page.
Okay. And,
or just tell me later.
Yeah, I will. So, but we would do that.
Interesting.
We would do that and come home, and I had a paper route, and my brother was young enough to where he would go to bed when we got home, but my dad and I would stay up and wait for the papers to show up around 2 or 3 in the morning. And we'd deliver papers at 3 in the morning on Christmas Eve. And there wasn't a soul out there. And it was just the most peaceful, quiet time to like, just to be out and doing it. And then we'd come home, and I'd help get the presents under the tree. And just, there's that moment right after we get done with all that, the lights would be on, the presents be under the tree. My dad would go to bed, and I just kind of sit and enjoy the quiet and just reminisce about what I just did. And it was like heaven for me.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope, when you don't realize, that was something that Nate asked earlier, you don't realize you're starting a tradition. The way this year ended for me, I started taking those walks, and so Christmas, I'm going to choke up. This is too much whiskey. My old neighbors on the other street, the Faulkners, they asked if they could take the walk with me on Christmas. And the daughters were just in love with it because it had snowed this year here in Columbus. And they brought the dog out, and it was like the 2 daughters came out, and Julie, the wife, was taking pictures and all that stuff. And I think that might be their new tradition. I hope. And I hope I can join them. All right.
You helped inspire one.
Maybe. All right. Shake it off. Rub some dirt on it. Let's go. Football needs more cheerleaders. Keely says every year, this is very sweet. Every year when they have the butterfly exhibit at the Franklin Park Conservatory, I take my daughter to the exhibit, and then we get a butterfly in its chrysalis stage from the gift shop. We let it grow into a butterfly, and then we release it in its in memory of her dad. It keeps it happy and honors her dad. That's powerful. That's powerful stuff. Let's see. We have a couple more.
I know my wife sent me a message of one of her
go ahead.
One of her family traditions growing up was I think it was always Martin Luther King Day weekend. Her and her parents and brother, they would always go up to Frankenmuth, Michigan, and they would stay at the hotel there in Frankenmuth, and there was a particular restaurant that they would always go to, but that was always one of those traditions again as a kid that she always looked forward to. And then, her when she was in college, her parents split, and so that tradition kind of went away. Then she got married to me, and we have been up there, but it's not a yearly thing, but it is something that she does miss, because of all the memories she has as a kid. And it kind of goes back to what I had said during our Sunday check-in. Like, sometimes you don't realize you have a memory of something until you see something that triggers that.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to thank everyone, listening. This is amazing. We need to maybe get better at, we kind of came up with this last minute, you know what I mean? But I love the comments here with some of the traditions, and maybe we do something like this again. Whether it be around a holiday, we can definitely revisit this topic, because a lot of people out there, they have their traditions. And I hope that the people that have commented on this, that they realize that this is something that they may have missed recently, or they already realized it, but they have more drive to bring them back, and I know I do. My life has changed this last year, like a lot of people, and I think this is something that we need to realize, the people that are around you, that you need to have these traditions. Something as trivial as me getting up a little early this morning on St. Patrick's Day, and I'm fortunate enough to still have, good friends like Larry Schumann, that he's in a position right now in his life that's not all great. But what do? We got together. He stuck around for the more of the morning after I had to go to work, but it was like we still did that. If I went full-blown tradition, it was like, all right, Brian, I'm not in on the 17th. I'm going to be next door. I might sleep in the chair today in the shop. I didn't stick with that full-blown tradition, but I kept a little kernel of that, those memories. And I'm happy that I got another picture with Larry. And it's fun because I know that people appreciate that. The people that know us, so through social media, for example, the 10-year apart pictures got a lot of likes and comments, you know what I mean? Because and there were a lot of people that I'm Facebook friends and Instagram friends with that I haven't heard from in a while, but at some point they were tied into St. Patrick's Day at Fido, at Easton, and they're like, I miss you guys, or they're liking it. I'm like, man, they haven't liked any of my stuff in forever.
So even though it wasn't,
it brings back their memories of good times of when they were here in Columbus, or they, life was at that was their point. It brings positivity to people.
Even though it wasn't the exact same thing, it was still enough to keep the tradition alive and bring back memories for other people.
Someone's got to do it. Someone's got to drink in the morning. You're welcome.
Seems like I will make that sacrifice for you.
Yeah, I've had more people actually comment. Like today, Kim Niswander, and I think he was concerned. He's a local guy. We should actually get him on the podcast. He has a great foundation, actually, Parker Lee Foundation. But I started taking those walks. I heard it through the grapevine. He had asked, he's like, "Do we need to look after Steve, because he's out in the woods right now on those trails every morning, and he's writing these really insightful things. And if he stops." Do we need to check it out? He came into the shop today, and he actually said, he's like, "Hey, I want to let you know, I really appreciate those posts that you're doing on those walks." And I'm like, yeah, some people were actually worried, because I had heard that he had said that. And I was like, some people are worried that I'm kind of going off the deep end. He's like, I'm not going to lie, I kind of did it first. And then I realized that these are really nice, and I actually look forward to them most days. And I'm like, well, I'm glad you do. He's like, but if you ever just need to text me. I'm good, bro. I'm good. All right, closing remarks. Sean, since you've been a part of it, you have anything?
Yeah. I appreciate you guys bringing this topic, because it really made me think about things I haven't even thought of. The traditions that were just so simple, or that I just as a kid just brought back. It's nostalgic for me, and it kind of gets me excited to see what traditions I can have in the future with my family, or revisit some. So just thank you for, giving us the platform to either reminisce or look forward or whatever. It was awesome. So thank you.
Nice. Nate, go ahead.
Yeah, Sean, you said it, and I was thinking as well. I mean, I kind of said it earlier on in part two. Like when you're a kid, you look at a tradition from one viewpoint, and then as an adult, you see it in a different light. And whether you keep that tradition, you see it in a different angle, or if you no longer are doing that tradition because of life or something else happened, like it makes you look back and at a different angle as well, and miss that. Like I at the time when I was a kid going to Taco Bell every Wednesday night with my dad, like I was looking at like, oh cool, this is a chance for me to go to Taco Bell and play video games with my dad. And then as an adult, and then not being able to do that, it's like, you know what? It wasn't about the Taco Bell. It wasn't about playing the video games. It's about spending time with my dad. And
Oof.
don't you start crying.
I'm not gonna start crying.
All right. But
I love it though.
At some point,
I'm not always a crier, Jesus.
Get
my estrogen in check.
At some point, someone had to start that tradition. And so like my dad probably started that tradition, and we kept that going for as long as we could. You were talking about the golf trip. Like someone started that, and then it continued to go. And I think it's important to realize the opportunity you have to actually start a tradition, because you don't know years from now the impact that tradition might have on other people within your household, your friends, your family. You don't realize just how important a tradition can be until you start one. And then also when one ends, you don't realize the impact it can have for generations, even, a tradition that you pass on to your kids and they pass on to their kids, but it all started somewhere. Why not start with you?
I'll follow it. You don't fuck with tradition, all right? So here's the thing, all right? I'm going to shoot you straight here. You can start one. You can continue one. You got to appreciate the tradition. There's a reason it is a tradition. If it's not for you at first, it might be at some point, because those things that you don't realize, that's, as Nate said, I'll build off of that one. I'm going to beat it. Jeez.
It's not a competition.
If you wanted to, no.
I was talking to Sean.
Oh, okay. Let's go. No, I'll tell you what. No, I'm just, no, I'm saying it's a tradition for a reason. And I think it's more rare that a tradition is a bad thing. I talk about like, excuse me, when I was in that, at St. John's in LaGrange, Illinois, and I was miserable as a kid. It's a tradition for a reason, because now looking back, there's so many fond memories of that, whether at the time I didn't appreciate it. So that's the challenge, is that do you appreciate that? Do you start a tradition without realizing it, but then it comes around, that'd be fun to do again. We had a good time. Did you have a good time? Yeah, you had a good time. Everyone had a good time. Yeah.
Something to look forward to.
Which part? Yeah. So Sean asked, he's not on the microphone. He's asked, would I do it again if I had the opportunity to go back there? If I was 11 or 12 years old, no, I'd actually be at my grandma's sleeping, right? Probably eating like Christmas cookies or whatever. Now, 40 years old, absolutely. I would love to do that. I'd love to have that opportunity. I think that's something with fond memories, that even if you weren't at the time appreciating that, because you were being selfish, right? I mean, I was a kid, right? I mean, I didn't appreciate that. I didn't know shit about shit, so that's where you're at, right? I think with traditions, I just appreciate. You got to figure out why it's a tradition. Why do we do this? Because then you can actually dislike it. if you don't, like, or disagree with it, right? So as a kid, if I would have been astute and said, why are we doing this? Well, it's because, this is what we do every year. It's like, well, why? Like a kid asks, right? It's like, why? It's like, well, because your grandma used to do this. It's like, well, why? And it's like, if you don't have the answers to that, to address your audience, you're going to lose them, right? So sometimes there is a responsibility if you're starting a tradition, if you're carrying on a tradition, or you're part of a tradition, is to learn more about it. And maybe that's part of it. Communication. We talk about this a lot on the podcast, is that communication is lacking in a lot of areas. Sometimes tradition, it shouldn't take you 20 years to look back and be like, oh, I appreciate that. It's not always going to be the case that you can get through that. Like as Brian says, just don't try to force one. The best traditions usually start organically, and you make it a point to continue it if it was a success. I think you're going to have some hurdles. Again, you're going to have that 11-year-old or whatever it is, like myself. And then it's like, I don't want to be here right now. I don't want to put a tie on. I don't want to do this. I'm tired. We just drove 7 hours, after stopping at a Stuckey's in Indiana, which is delicious, by the way. Stuckey's Dairy Queen, right? I don't think it's there anymore, but it was delicious. That was more of a highlight tradition of my trip to Chicago than the candlelight service as a kid. Are we in Indiana yet? Yeah. We just got over the border. It's like, okay, so it's like 20 minutes until Stuckey's and Dairy Queen. Like, we're in. Like, I just want to know. Like, you look forward to different things. So you got to be smart about it. So that's my thing, is that you don't fuck with tradition because it's a tradition for a reason. However, we are in the day and age where we are questioning a lot of traditions. And I will say this, at the core, sometimes the traditions are based off of not so relevant stuff anymore, but there's a lot of positives from it. And so that's where I think you have to look at what the reason is. And then if there is a tradition that you need to stop, that's fine. But at the same time, there might be some positives from it. And that's the whole positivity about this. And that's what I love about the feed that we have going on during the podcast. So if you guys are listening to the end of this on the audio, every week on Facebook Live, we look at that. YouTube Live, we don't look at it as much because we don't have the access to it since our setup, but always comment afterwards. Send us messages, whatever you need to do. I think that the reason you don't fuck with tradition is because if you're always questioning it, you might be objecting to it. But there's all the other side, is that if you don't question it, or ask questions, not question in a negative way, but ask questions like, why, you may not understand it. And you may not always understand, like, these traditions that go back centuries. Yeah, things have changed. Decades. Yeah, things have changed. But I think most of the stuff that we talked about tonight, like as far as vacations and holidays and reasons you get together with people, whether it be something very important, like something that's a religious holiday, or it's something as silly as me having a beer with Larry this morning, that made me feel good. And I think you have to find those. But sometimes when you find yourself lacking, it doesn't have to be something different necessarily, but you can start something fun and stupid. And in your mind, you don't tell anyone, first of all, because they're going to think you're crazy. But you might think like, hey, you know what? Let's try this, see if it catches on. And then like next year, like, hey, you guys want to do that again? Because it's important to you, getting people together. I had this idea when I was in the house I was renting in the neighborhood of having a pool party. That house does not have a pool.
I remember Nook.
It was going to get sponsored by CLE Cigars.
Yes.
So the pool party, and I want to be invited if you guys do it. I'm not going to do it here because I own the property and I don't want this shit on my lawn. The pool party is not coming over to my pool. It's you bring a kiddie pool. Sean immediately says that's awesome. You can bring your kids, bring your dog. Doesn't matter. You just got to take the pool with you when you leave, because that's going to kill my fucking grass. But a pool party where everyone brings a Walmart, whatever, Amazon,
a little
kiddie pool.
Plastic.
I'll fill it up. That's fine. I got the water bill that month. However, You got to take it with you. It'll be barbecue. We do whatever. Everyone just sits around in their own pools and they talk as like a community of kiddie pools.
That's awesome.
Isn't that amazing? I might do that. All right. So, guys, it doesn't have to be that important to be a good tradition that brings smiles to your face.
Absolutely.
All right. To pool parties and traditions. Don't fuck with tradition. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Have a great week. We will see you next week. And happy St. Paddy's Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Get some rest.
Drink responsibly, get home safe.
That too.